Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Dragon God Ranger, the true master of the Morphin Grid, Naruto x Kimberly Hart Power Rangers. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Fracture. The ancient stone beneath Naruto's fingertips radiated an inexplicable warmth that seemed at odds with the pre-dawn chill hanging over the Valley of the End. 21 years of age now. He crouched before the half-buried shrine, the gentle orange glow of sunrise catching in his blonde hair as he traced the unfamiliar symbols etched into the rock face. They resembled no writing system he recognized from his extensive travels across the shinobi world, neither the common script of the five great nations nor any ancient text he'd encountered in his years studying with the Toad Sage. "You feel it too, don't you?" Naruto whispered, addressing the presence within him that had stirred the moment they'd approached this hidden cleft in the valley wall. Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed within him, rumbled with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "This power, it's both familiar and alien," the tailed beast responded in Naruto's mind. "It resonates with chakra. Yet it's fundamentally different, almost like looking at your reflection in rippling water, recognizable but distorted." Naruto closed his eyes, extending his sensory perception outward as he'd learned to do during the Fourth Great Ninja War. The familiar tapestry of natural energy flowed around him, but here, at this exact spot, it seemed to spiral into something else, a lattice of energy that extended beyond his perception, as if reaching into places he couldn't quite comprehend. "Naruto-kun." The soft voice behind him belonged to Hinata Hyuga, her pale eyes reflecting concern. As she approached through the misty forest, she moved with the fluid grace that had become her signature, each step precise and deliberate, her long indigo hair framing features that had grown more confident with the passing years. "You disappeared from the village before dawn," she said, coming to kneel beside him. "Kakashi-sama was concerned when you missed the council meeting." Naruto smiled apologetically, though his attention remained fixed on the strange shrine. "Sorry, Hinata, I woke up feeling drawn to this place. It was like a pull I couldn't ignore." She activated her Byakugan without prompting, veins delicately branching around her eyes as she examined the shrine. Her sharp intake of breath told him she saw something extraordinary. "The chakra patterns," she whispered. "I've never seen anything like this. It's forming a perfect geometric lattice that extends." She tilted her head in confusion. "It seems to extend nowhere and everywhere simultaneously." "That's not ominous at all," came a third voice, sharper and more sardonic than Hinata's. Ino Yamanaka stepped into the small clearing, her long platinum blonde hair gathered in a high ponytail that swayed as she approached. When the Hokage's advisor and the head of the sensory division both disappeared to investigate mysterious energy, someone from intelligence should probably tag along. Naruto acknowledged her with a nod, appreciating how the Yamanaka clan heir had transformed intelligence division protocols since taking leadership after her father's death. Her confident bearing and quick mind had earned her respect throughout the shinobi world. "Glad you're here, Ino," he said genuinely. "I think we might need your expertise." Naruto returned his attention to the shrine, allowing his fingers to drift over a particularly distinctive symbol, a six-sided geometric pattern that seemed to pulse beneath his touch. Without warning, the etching illuminated with emerald light, causing the three shinobi to leap backward in defensive stances. "That's new," Naruto muttered, watching as the green light spread to adjacent symbols, forming an intricate network of glowing patterns across the shrine's surface. The air grew heavy with energy, making the hairs on his arms stand on end. Hinata stepped forward cautiously. "The energy is responding specifically to you, Naruto-kun. Your chakra signature is somehow resonating with it." Ino frowned, performing a quick series of hand signs that Naruto recognized as a specialized sensory technique. "There's a telepathic imprint here, ancient but still active. It's almost like a message waiting for a specific receiver." Before Naruto could respond, a familiar and unwelcome sensation washed over him, the distinct pressure of Otsutsuki chakra. His body tensed instinctively, years of combat experience bringing his senses to high alert. "We've got company," he warned, turning to face the forest as three pale figures emerged from between the trees. Their white robes and horned appearances were unmistakable, remnants of Kagaya Otsutsuki's clan that had remained hidden even after the defeat of their matriarch. The dragon shrine responds, the central figure spoke. Voice echoing unnaturally. After millennia of dormancy, it recognizes its catalyst. His pupilless eyes fixed on Naruto with disturbing intensity. How fitting that Hagoromo's legacy would lead us here. Naruto moved protectively in front of his companions, though he knew both women were formidable shinobi in their own right. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm guessing you're not here for a friendly chat about ancient architecture. The Otsutsuki smiled, a cold expression devoid of humor. The confluence of powers within you, Ashura's chakra, Kurama's essence. The natural energy you've mastered, they've created something unexpected. A key to powers beyond even what our clan sought. That doesn't sound good, Ino muttered, shifting into a combat stance beside Naruto. Hinata had already activated her gentle fist stance, her Byakugan providing a 360-degree view of their surroundings. There are 5 more surrounding us, she reported calmly. Each WITH chakra levels comparable to Kagaya's lower-tier servants. Naruto assessed their options with the strategic mind he'd developed through years of leadership. Direct confrontation in this enclosed space put the shrine at risk of damage. Retreat would lead these Otsutsuki remnants back toward Konoha. Neither option was acceptable. Whatever you want with this shrine, it's not happening, Naruto declared. Channeling chakra through his system. Golden energy began to manifest around him as he accessed 6 Paths Sage mode, his eyes transforming to reflect the power surging through him. The lead Otsutsuki raised his hand, revealing a small crystalline orb. We've waited centuries for the shrine to awaken. We merely need the final component, you. Everything happened at once. The Otsutsuki who RLED the crystal toward the shrine as his companions launched into attack. Naruto created 4 shadow clones instantly, each moving to intercept a different threat. Hinata's hands became blurs of chalk. Raw infused movement as she engaged 2 attackers simultaneously, her gentle fist striking with pinpoint precision. Ino's mind transfer technique immobilized another attacker mid-leap. Naruto himself lunged for the crystal, recognizing the imminent danger even without understanding its nature. His fingers closed around the small orb mere inches before it would have struck the shrine, but the moment of contact triggered something unexpected. The crystal dissolved into pure energy that shot up his arm, burning like liquid fire through his chakra network. Simultaneously, the shrine erupted with blindingly bright green light that engulfed the entire clearing. Naruto-kun. Hinata's voice reached him through the chaos as she fought to reach his side. Stay back, he called out, but it was too late. The shrine's energy spiraled outward in a vortex, connecting with the Otsutsuki crystal's power that now coursed through Naruto's body. Reality itself seemed to fracture around them. The Otsutsuki attackers were thrown backward by the explosion of energy, but Hinata and Ino, who had been closest to Naruto, were caught in the same distortion field that now surrounded him. Naruto reached out, managing to grasp both women's hands as the world around them collapsed inward. The last thing he saw was the Otsutsuki leader's face contorted in fury and fear before everything, the shrine, the valley. Their entire reality, compressed into a single point of light. And then they were falling through absolute nothingness. Kimberly Hart ducked beneath a putty's wild swing, using its momentum to flip it over her shoulder with practiced ease. The familiar rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins as she fought alongside her fellow rangers in what should have been a routine encounter in Angel Grove Park. Except nothing about this attack felt routine. Is it just me, or are these clay creeps actually coordinating today? She called out, executing a perfect spinning kick that sent an other putty stumbling into Tommy's waiting fist. Definitely not just you, the White Ranger confirmed, dispatching his opponent with efficient strikes. They're targeting the geological survey equipment specifically. Across the battlefield, Billy's blue-clad form moved with scientific precision as he defended the university's seismic monitoring station they'd been helping install when the attack began. This equipment is designed to measure dimensional thinning, he explained between counterattacks. Lord Zed shouldn't even know about this project. Kimberly somersaulted over a park bank, to reach a putty that had broken through their perimeter, striking it squarely in the chest. As the creature dissolved into clay particles, she felt a strange vibration through the soles of her boots, not from the impact of her attack, but from the ground itself. "Guys, something's happening," she warned, instinctively moving toward the epicenter of the tremors. The air before her began to shim, like heat waves rising from summer asphalt, distorting her view of the trees beyond. "Kim, wait," Tommy called out, but she had already closed half the distance to the anomaly when it exploded out. Ward in a flash of green and golden light. The shockwave knocked her backward, though years of gymnastics training allowed her to roll with the impact and return instantly to her feet. What she saw made her freeze mid-stance. Where empty park grounds had been moments before, 3 figures now crouched in a defensive formation, 2 women and a man, all wearing what appeared to be some form of military gear unlike any she'd seen before. The man stood slightly forward of the others, his posture protective yet balanced. Even from a distance, Kimberly could see his eyes were unlike anything human, glowing with golden light. Cross-shaped pupils set against an otherworldly luminescence. "Zordon," she spoke into her communicator without taking her eyes off the newcomers. "We have a situation." Before the command center could respond, the remaining putties redirected their attack toward the new arrivals with surprising purposefulness. Kimberly watched in astonishment as the 3 strangers responded with devastating efficiency. The man, blonde with curious facial markings like whiskers, moved faster than her eyes could track, creating exact duplicates of himself that engaged multiple putties simultaneously. One of the women, dark-haired with pale lavender eyes, struck with palm techniques that somehow disintegrated the putties without direct contact. The blonde woman made a strange hand sign and one putty suddenly turned on its companions, attacking them before collapsing. "Those aren't any powers I recognize," Billy commented, arriving at Kimberly's side. "They're not rangers," she agreed, watching as the blonde man formed a spiraling sphere of energy in his palm that tore through 3 putties at once. "But they're definitely not normal humans either." The skirmish ended within moments, the strangers dispatching the remaining putties with alarming ease. As the dust settled, the 3 newcomers grouped together, speaking in rapid, quiet tones while casting wary glances at the rangers. Kimberly made a decision and stepped forward, demorphing in a flash of pink light to appear less threatening. Tommy made a sound of protest behind her, but she ignored it, knowing sometimes diplomacy required vulnerability. "I'm Kimberly Hart," she called out, keeping her hands visible. "Welcome to Angel Grove, wherever you're from." The blonde man, whose eyes had returned to a startling natural blue, regarded her with a mixture of caution and curiosity. When he spoke, his words were in an unfamiliar language, melodic yet sharp. "They can't understand us," the lavender-eyed woman beside him said in the same language, her voice softer but carrying clearly across the space between them. The blonde woman stepped forward, forming another unusual hand sign. Before Kimberly could react, the woman's eyes rolled back briefly, and then she spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "We mean no harm," she said, her voice carrying an odd echo quality. "My name is Ino Yamanaka. I've accessed the language center of your brain to facilitate communication. I apologize for the intrusion, but it seemed the most efficient solution." Kimberly blinked in surprise, both at the sudden language shift and the casual mention of mind reading. "That's handy," she managed, fighting the urge to step backward. Billy had moved to check his equipment, which was now emitting a series of urgent beeps. "Kim," he called, excitement evident even through his helmet. "The dimensional readings are off the charts. These people literally tore through the fabric of space-time." The blonde man spoke again, and this time Ino translated. "I am Naruto Uzumaki. This is Hinata Hyuga. We are shinobi of Konohagakure. Where exactly are we, and what were those clay creatures?" Something about the Nam. Naruto triggered a reaction in Billy's equipment, causing it to emit a high-pitched whine. Simultaneously, Kimberly's communicator activated without her touching it. "Rangers," Zordon's voice emerged, sounding more urgent than Kimberly had heard in years. "Bring the visitors to the command center immediately. Especially the one called Naruto. The Morphin grid is responding to his presence in ways I've never witnessed." Tommy had demorphed and joined Kimberly, his expression reflecting the gravity of Zordon's tone. "We should do as he says," he murmured. "But be careful, we don't know anything about them." Naruto seemed to recognize they were being discussed and stepped forward, his stance non-threatening yet unmistakably powerful. Through Ino's translation, He addressed the Rangers directly. We arrived here by accident during a battle with enemies from our world. If you can help us understand where we are and how to return home, we would be grateful. In return, we offer our assistance against any threats you face. Something about his directness and the clear leadership quality in his bearing resonated with Kimberly. Despite the extraordinary circumstances, she found herself inclined to trust him, a feeling she'd learned to respect through years of ranger duties. We have someone who might be able to help you, she responded, meeting his gaze steadily. Our mentor, Zordon. He has knowledge about dimensional travel and energy that exceeds anyone on our planet. Hinata spoke briefly to Naruto, and Ino translated her words. The energy patterns here are similar to what we observed at the Dragon Shrine. There may be a connection. Billy, who had been monitoring his equipment, suddenly looked up with excitement. Dragon Shrine. Did she say Dragon Shrine? When Ino nodded confirmation, he turned to Tommy and Kimberly. That could explain the grid fluctuations. The dragon power has always been the most volatile aspect of the Morphin grid. Tommy was the Green Dragon Ranger. Kimberly explained to the visitors. And later, the White Tiger Ranger. The dragon powers were eventually lost. Naruto's expression changed at this information, a flash of recognition crossing his features. He spoke rapidly to his companions, gesturing occasionally toward Tommy. Ino's translation came more slowly this time, as if she was struggling with unfamiliar concepts. Naruto says that in our world, he contains the spirit of a nine-tailed fox creature, a being of immense chakra. When we discovered the shrine, both he and this spirit felt a connection to it. The enemies WHO attacked us called it the Dragon Shrine and seemed to believe Naruto was some kind of catalyst for its power. Tommy and Kimberly exchanged significant looks. We need to get them to Zordon, Tommy decided. This is beyond coincidence. As if summoned by the tension of the moment, a fresh squadron of putties materialized around them, accompanied by a monster Kimberly had never seen before, a reptilian humanoid with scales that shifted between green and gold, emanating an energy signature that made her ranger senses tingle with warning. Dimensional travelers, the creature hissed, its voice grating like metal on stone. Lord Zed sends his regards, and his collection agents. The Rangers immediately moved into defensive positions alongside the three newcomers, forming a unified front against the threat. Guess introductions will have to wait, Kimberly said, reaching for her morpher. It's Morphin time. Naruto assessed the new threat with the tactical efficiency honed through years of combat. These putties, as Kimberly had called them, were clearly mass-produced foot soldiers, similar in function to white Zetsu, though apparently composed of animated clay rather than plant matter. The reptilian commander presented a more significant challenge, its chakra, or whatever energy these beings used, pulsing with malevolent purpose. As the colorfully armored rangers transformed beside them, Naruto nodded to Hinata and Ino, communicating without words their battle strategy. The ease with which they fell into formation spoke to countless missions completed together. Can you still link our minds? He asked Ino, his eyes tracking the enemy's movements. Ino nodded, forming her clan's distinctive mind transfer seal. Mental link established. We're connected to each other. But not to the Rangers. Their energy signatures are too different for me to interface with without preparation. Their fighting style is structured around individual combat rather than team coordination, Hinata observed. Her Byakugan active. They're powerful but predictable. Naruto created a shadow clone to relay strategies to their new allies while he, Hinata, and Ino launched into the fray. The familiarity of combat provided a strange comfort amid the disorientation of dimensional displacement. Something's different about my chakra here, he communicated through Ino's mental link as he formed a Rasengan. The spiraling orb materialized as expected, but with unusual emerald lightning crackling around its perimeter. When it connected with one of the putties, the creature didn't merely dissolve, it deconstructed into particles of light that scattered into the air. The ambient energy is interacting with our techniques, Hinata responded, her gentle fist strikes leaving trails of luminescence as she disabled three opponents in rapid succession. My Byakugan is detecting what appears to be a universal energy field permeating everything here. It's similar to natural energy, but more structured. Kimberly, now the Pink Ranger, flipped gracefully over a putty's head, firing an energy arrow that cleared a path toward Naruto. Your clone says you can create a diverse on for Billy to reach the monster's blind spot, she called out, her voice slightly modulated through her helmet. Naruto nodded, forming the cross-shaped hand sign that had become his signature. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, he declared, focusing his chakra into the familiar technique. The result exceeded his expectations. Instead of the dozen clones he'd intended, over 50 identical copies of himself materialized across the battlefield, each crackling with the same unusual green-gold energy he'd felt since arrival. Whoa, he heard Kimberly exclaim. That's definitely not a ranger power. The reptilian commander hissed in alarm, its scaled head swiveling to track the sudden multiplication of opponents. The dragon force. Impossible. That power was sealed. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him at these words. Dragon force. The fox questioned. This entity recognizes your chakra signature as something specific to this world. Asterisk. Before Naruto could pursue this thought, the monster unleashed a blast of energy that dissipated 20 of his clones instantly. The remaining copies converged on the creature while Naruto himself dropped back to coordinate with the rangers. Billy, now, Tommy directed, and the Blue Ranger executed a precise maneuver that positioned him behind the distracted monster. A device in his hand emitted a pulse that momentarily immobilized their enemy. Dimensional inhibitor activated, Billy reported. His molecular structure is temporarily frozen between planes. Naruto recognized an opportunity when he saw one. Hinata. Ino, Formation 3. Hitu Kunoichi moved with practiced efficiency. Hinata struck the monster's energy centers with pinpoint gentle fist strikes, temporarily disrupting its power flow. Simultaneously, Ino projected a NTAL technique that confused its sensory perception. Rangers, we've created an opening, Naruto called out to their new allies. If you have a finishing technique, now would be the time. Tommy nodded, and the 5 rangers combined their weapons into a single cannon-like device. Power Blaster, ready, they announced in unison. As the rangers charged their weapon, Naruto felt a strange resonance between their energy and his own. Acting on instinct, he channeled chakra into his palm, forming another Rasengan that immediately began to take on characteristics he'd never seen before, concentric rings of green, white, and gold energy spiraling around a core of pure light. What is that? Kimberly asked, her helmet turning toward his technique. Rasengan, Naruto answered, watching as the technique continued to evolve in his hand. But something's changing it. The Morphin grid is responding to your energy signature, Billy explained quickly. It's integrating with your technique. Reptilian commander broke partially free from its restraints, thrashing against the combined techniques holding it in place. This changes nothing, it snarled. The dimensions are already weakening. Lord Zaren will rise again. Naruto and Kimberly exchanged a quick glance, an unspoken communication passing between them despite their brief acquaintance. With simultaneous nods, they launched their attacks together. Fire! The rangers called, unleashing a multicolored beam from their combined weapon. Grid style. Tailed Beast Rasengan. Naruto shouted, the name coming to him intuitively as he drove the transformed technique forward. The 2 attacks spiraled around each other, merging into a helix of power that struck the monster with cataclysmic force. The creature's form distorted, stretched, and finally deconstructed in an explosion of light that temporarily blinded everyone present. As the light faded, Naruto felt the unusual energy that had enhanced his technique recede, leaving him momentarily drained but exhilarated. The successful collaboration with these rangers felt surprisingly natural, despite their differing combat philosophies. Kimberly approached him, her NK Ranger armor dissolving in a shower of light to reveal her human form once more. That was impressive, she said, genuine respect in her voice. I've never seen anything like your abilities. Naruto smiled, the expression lighting his features with characteristic warmth despite the gravity of their situation. We shinobi are full of surprises. But I could say the same about you rangers. Tommy joined them, followed by the others who had also demorphed. That creature mentioned Lord Zaren, he said, his expression serious. That's a name I've never heard before, but he spoke it as if we should know it. And he recognized your energy as the Dragon Force, Billy added, looking at Naruto with undisguised scientific curiosity. A power Zordon has only mentioned in theoretical discus science about the deepest aspects of the Morphin grid. Ino, who had maintained her telepathic link throughout the battle, frowned thoughtfully. I gleaned fragments from that creature's mind before it was destroyed. It was searching specifically for dimensional anomalies. Your Lord Zed sent it as a scout, but it seemed to be following another entity's directives as well. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, the veins around her eyes receding. The energy patterns are stabilizing now, she reported, but I can still detect what appears to be a tear in the dimensional fabric approximately 2 kilometers in that direction. She pointed northeast, toward a rocky area outside the park. Kimberly's communicator beeped insistently. Rangers, Zordon's voice emerged, the energy signature we detected has been confirmed. Teleport to the command center immediately and bring the visitors. Time is of the essence. Ready? Kimberly asked, looking at Naruto with an expression that somehow combined professional urgency with personal interest. Naruto nodded, glancing at his companions to confirm their readiness. Lead the way. The world dissolved around them in streams of colored light. The command center materialized around them in a disorienting flash, its circular chamber filled with blinking consoles and displays that immediately reminded Naruto of Konoha's Cipher Division, though clearly more advanced. At the chamber's center stood a large crystal globe, pulsing with energy that resonated with the unfamiliar power Naruto had felt since arriving in this dimension. Most impose. Ing was the massive transparent tube at the far end of the chamber, within which floated the image of a humanoid face, ancient, wise, and unmistakably alien. Welcome to the command center, the face spoke, its voice the same that had emerged from the Rangers' communicators. I am Zordon of Eltar, mentor to the Power Rangers. And you, his gaze fixed directly on Naruto, are something I never expected to encounter in this dimension. Naruto stepped forward, instinctively straightening his posture in the presence of what he recognized as a being of significant power and authority. I am Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konohagakure and Jinchuriki of Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. I know what you are, Zordon responded, his expression unreadable. The question is whether you know. A small robo-T that had been moving busily among the consoles approached, its red sensors fixed on Naruto and his companions. The energy readings are unprecedented, Zordon. His molecular structure is vibrating at a frequency that shouldn't be stable in our dimension. Thank you, Alpha, Zordon acknowledged before returning his attention to Naruto. What do you know of the Dragon Force? Naruto changed glances with Hinata and Ino before answering truthfully. Nothing until today. We discovered an ancient shrine in our world that the Otsutsuki clan called the Dragon Shrine. They attacked us, seeking to use me as some kind of catalyst for its power. During the battle, we were transported here. Zordon was silent for a moment, seeming to contemplate this information. Finally, he spoke again, his voice resonating with the weight of ancient knowledge. Billions of years ago, before the formation of the Power Rangers or even the established boundaries between dimensions, there existed a primordial force known as the Dragon Force, the rawest, most fundamental aspect of what we now call the Morphin grid. It was too volatile, too powerful to be controlled or directed. When the dimensions separated into distinct realities, the Dragon Force was divided among them, manifesting differently in each world. The crystal globe in the center of the command center activated, projecting images that depicted swirling energies coalescing into distinct streams that flowed into separate spheres. In this dimension, Zordon continued, the Dragon Force became the foundation of the Morphin grid. The cosmic energy that powers the Rangers. In your dimension, it appears to have integrated with biological energy to create what you call chakra. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him again, the fox's consciousness pushing forward with unusual interest. Ask him about the Sage of Six Paths, Kurama prompted. This connects to Hagoromo's origins. What about the Sage of Six Paths? Naruto asked, following Kurama's suggestion. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, who first brought chakra to our world. The image in the globe shifted, showing a figure reminiscent of the sage as Naruto had encountered him during the war, horned, ringed eyes. Carrying a distinctive staff, Hagoromo was one of the few beings who could traverse dimensions naturally, Zordon confirmed. He discovered how to harness the Dr. Agon force aspect present in your world and integrated it with biological life, creating chakra as you know it. The Morphin grid and chakra are different expressions of the same fundamental power. No had been silently processing this information, her analytical mind connecting patterns. The Otsutsuki clan has been harvesting chakra across dimensions, she observed. They're collecting fragments of this dragon force. Precisely. Zordon agreed. And now, a convergence is occurring. The dimensional boundaries are thinning, allowing aspects of the dragon force to reunify. Your arrival here is both symptom and catalyst of this process. Billy had been working at one of the consoles, correlating data as the conversation progressed. The seismic monitoring equipment we were installing was detecting these dimensional fluctuations, he explained. But according to these readings, the convergence points are multiplying exponentially. Kimberly moved closer to Naruto, her expression reflecting both concern and fascination. What does this mean for them? Can they return to their dimension? Return is possible, Zordon answered, but not advisable at present. The dimensional passage that brought them here remains unstable. More concerning is that their arrival has accelerated the convergence process. Tommy, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. You mentioned Lord Zarin. The monster called him by name, suggesting he's connected to Lord Zed somehow. Who is he? A shadow seemed to pass across Zordon's expression, an impressive feat for a being who existed as a projected image. Lord Zarin was once a unified entity who sought to control the dragon force before the dimensional separation. When he failed, his essence was fractured across multiple dimensions. In this world, a fragment of his consciousness became what you know as Lord Zed. And in our world, Hinata asked, speaking directly to Zordon for the first time. Did a fragment manifest there as well? Yes, Zordon confirmed. Though I cannot be certain of its form, the records suggest this fragment influenced the rise of Kagaya Otsutsuki, the progenitor of chakra manipulation for conquest rather than harmony. This revelation sent a chill through Naruto. The idea that Kagaya, the near-godlike entity they had barely managed to defeat, was merely a fragment of something larger was deeply unsettling. The monster said Zarin will rise again, Naruto recalled, as the dimensional convergence allowing these fragments to reunify. That appears to be Lord Zed's current objective, Zordon confirmed. The attacks on dimensional weak points, the sudden interest in interdimensional travelers, all point to an attempt to accelerate the convergence and restore Lord Zarin to his original form. The command center's alarm suddenly blared, cutting through the tension of the moment. Alpha scurried to a console, his mechanical limbs moving with surprising dexterity. Multiple dimensi, onal rifts are opening across Angel Grove, and energy signatures matching the Otsutsuki readings are emerging from 3 of them. They followed us, Hinata stated, her Byakugan activating automatic ally as she extended her perception as far as possible in this unfamiliar environment. Zordon's expression became even more grave. Rangers, you must secure these rifts before more entities cross over. The dimensional stability of both worlds depends on it. What about us? Naruto asked, already mentally preparing for battle. We won't stand by while others fight our enemies. Naruto Uzumaki, Zordon addressed him directly. You represent something unprecedented, a being who can channel both chakra and the Morphin grid's energy simultaneously. The resonance between your natural abilities and the dragon force aspect of the grid suggests you may be the key to stabilizing the dimensional boundaries. The crystal globe shifted again, displaying an image of what appeared to be a power coin. Similar to what Naruto had glimpsed the Rangers using, but with a distinctive design, a dragon coiled around a spiral pattern reminiscent of his Rasengan. Centuries ago, I created a theoretical our coin based on ancient prophecies about the dragon force's eventual resurgence, Zordon explained. I believed it merely academic research at the time, as the coin never connected to the grid. It appears now that it was waiting for you. A panel opened in one of the consoles, revealing a green gold coin that pulsed with energy that immediately resonated with Naruto's chakra. As he approached it, the coin levitated slightly, spinning in midair as if eager to reach him. If you accept this responsibility, Zordon continued, you would become what the ancient texts called the Dragon God Ranger. A being capable of stabilizing the boundary between dimensions through mastery of the unified dragon force. Kimberly stepped forward, her expression serious. Zordon, are you sure? We've never integrated someone from another dimension into the Ranger team before. Not merely integrated, Kimberly, Zordon corrected. If the prophecies are accurate, Naruto would represent an entirely new aspect of Ranger power, one that exists partially outside our dimensional framework. Naruto looked to his companions, reading the complex emotions in their expressions. Hinata's eyes held concern but absolute faith in whatever decision he would make. Ino's analytical mind was clearly racing through implications, but her slight nod conveyed support. Finally, he turned to Kimberly, finding in her gaze something unexpectedly compelling, a recognition of shared responsibility and purpose that transcended their brief acquaintance. I've never been one to back down from protecting what matters, Naruto said, returning his attention to Zordon. If this power helps me protect both our worlds, I'll accept it. The coin's spinning accelerated, its glow intensifying as if responding to his declaration. Naruto extended his hand, and the coin settled into his palm with a surge of energy that raced up his arm and throughout his body. It felt simultaneously foreign and familiar, like Kurama's chakra had. The first time he had fully harmonized with it, yet fundamentally different. This power, Kurama's voice resonated within him. It's connecting to both of us. The grid recognizes us as a unified entity. The dragon god Morphin will manifest according to your natural energy patterns, Zordon explained as the coin seemed to dissolve into Naruto's palm, leaving behind an intricate spiral paw. TTERN etched in luminescent green on his skin. Unlike traditional rangers, your transformation will be a fusion of Morphin grid energy and your own chakra. The alarms blared again with increased urgency. Alpha's mechanical voice rose above the noise. Rangers. The dimensional rifts are widening. We have multiple incursions in the warehouse district, the mountains, and the central plaza. Tommy took charge immediately, his years of leadership evident in his calm authority. We'll split into teams. Jason, Billy, and I will take the warehouse district. Zack and Trini, handle the mountains. Kimberly, I'll go with Naruto to the plaza, she finished, meeting his gaze with determined confidence. He'll need someone familiar with Angel Grove until he acclimates to the Ranger powers. I'm coming too, Hinata stated firmly. Moving to Naruto's side, my Byakugan can track the dimensional energy patterns. And I'll maintain telepathic coordination between teams, Ino added pragmatically. Since our communicators won't work in this dimension. Tommy nodded, accepting their input without hesitation, a sign of a true leader recognizing valuable allies regardless of origin. All right, let's move out. May the power protect you all, Zordon intoned as the Rangers reached for their morphers. It's Morphin time, Tommy called out, initiating the transformation sequence. As the Rangers morphed around him, Naruto felt the new power within him responding, resonating with their transformation energy. Acting on instinct, he raised his right hand, where the dragon spiral pattern glowed with increasing intensity. Dragon Force, activate, he called out, the words coming to him naturally as if they had always been part of his being. The power that erupted from within him was unlike anything Naruto had experienced before, neither pure chakra nor the foreign energy of this dimension, but a perfect synthesis of both. Emerald and golden light enveloped him, transforming into armor that combined elements of traditional ranger suits with designs reminiscent of the Sage of Six Paths appearance. As the transformation completed, Naruto stood in armor primarily deep green with D accents that seemed to shift and flow like living energy. Unlike the solid helmets of the other rangers, his featured a partial face guard that left his upper face exposed, with his eyes now glowing. With the combined power of Sage Mode and the Morphin Grid, the Dragon God Ranger, Kimberly whispered, evident awe in her voice despite her own transformation. It's really true. Naruto flexed his hands, feeling the power flowing through him, familiar yet expanded, as if his capabilities had been translated through a new medium that enhanced their fundamental nature. Let's save both our worlds, he said with quiet determination, meeting the gazes of both his longtime companions and his new allies. Together, the command center dissolved around them as they teleported toward their respective destinations, launching the first coordinated defense against a threat that spanned dimensions. Behind them, Zordon watched their departure with an expression that combined hope and grave concern. The prophecy is in motion. He murmured to Alpha. For better or worse, the dragon god has returned to the grid. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Worlds Apart. Kimberly Hart's bedroom had never been intended to host interdimensional visitors. Pink decorations, gymnastics trophies, and photographs of friends adorned shelves around a space designed for a normal American teenager. Now, perched awkwardly on her bed, sat 3 elite warriors from another dimension, examining ordinary objects with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. So this communicates with anyone in your world. Without chakra. Ino turned Kimberly's cordless telephone over in her hands, studying it from every angle as if expecting to find chakra transmission seals hidden somewhere in the plastic casing. Just people who have their own phones, Kimberly explained, gently retrieving the device before Ino could dismantle it. And only if you know their number. The blonde kunoichi nodded, clearly filing away the information for later analysis. Her intelligence-gathering instincts remained razor-sharp even in this unfamiliar environment. Hinata sat cross-legged on the floor, her Byakugan activated as S. He scanned through the walls of the Hart residence. Your power systems are fascinating, she observed quietly. Electricity flowing through dedicated pathways without any apparent chakra regulation. Naruto, meanwhile, stood at the window, his gaze fixed on the suburban landscape of Angel Grove. Everything, from the perfectly aligned houses to the vehicles moving along paved roads, differed so fundamentally from Konoha's organic architecture and forest-integrated design. Yet beneath those differences, he sensed similarities. People living their lives, communities functioning, children playing in parks that could have been anywhere. Your world feels younger somehow, he said without turning. But the people don't seem that different. Kimberly moved to stand beside him, following his gaze across her neighborhood. The afternoon sun caught in her chestnut hair, highlighting subtle auburn tones Naruto hadn't noticed in the command center's artificial lighting. I guess every dimension has its own development path, she offered thoughtfully. Zordon mentioned your world channeled energy biologically through chakra, while ours developed technology instead. Naruto nodded, appreciating her attempt to bridge their different perspectives. Since the battle at the plaza 4 hours earlier, they had established a temporary truce with the Otsutsuki remnants who had followed them through the dimensional tier. Both sides recognized the greater threat of unchecked dimensional instability and had retreated to assess their situations. Zordon had suggested the shinobi remain with Kimberly, whose parents were conveniently away at a dental convention for the weekend. In our world, we have technology too, Naruto clarified, turning from the window. Just different, more integrated with natural energy. And no cars, Ino added with a smile, having observed the traffic outside with fascination. We travel by foot or summoned animals. Much more environmentally friendly, but probably slower, Kimberly countered good-naturedly. Speaking of which, we should meet the others at the youth center in about 30 minutes. We need to get you 3 looking a little less like we're ready for combat, Hinata supplied, glancing down at her mission gear with its multiple weapons pouches and reinforced armor sections. Kimberly's expression brightened. Exactly. Fashion emergency time. She moved to her closet and began pulling out various items. We need to blend in until we figure out what's happening with these dimensional rifts. Naruto exchanged amused glances with his companions. Cultural integration was standard procedure for any infiltration mission, though usually they had more preparation time. Still, adaptability was a shinobi's greatest asset. I'm not wearing pink, Ino declared preemptively, eyeing Kimberly's predominantly rose-colored wardrobe with good-humored suspicion. Kimberly laughed, the sound unexpectedly melodic. Don't worry, I have range. She pulled out several items in blues and purples. Though I think pink would look amazing with your coloring. As the women sorted through clothing options, Naruto realized Kimberly's father's clothes had been set aside for him. The casual shorts and button-up shirt felt foreign compared to his standard gear, but not uncomfortably so. He stepped into the adjacent bathroom to change, catching his reflection in the mirror afterward. The stranger looking back at him wore clothes emblazoned with unfamiliar logos and patterns. Only his face, with its distinctive whisker marks and bright blue eyes, remained unchanged. Beneath his right sleeve, the dragon spiral pattern still glowed faintly against his skin, a permanent reminder of his new connection to this world's power system. You're adapting quickly, Kurama observed from within. This dimension's energy is becoming more compatible with our own. I noticed, Naruto murmured, flexing his hand where the spiral marking pulsed in response to his attention. It's like learning a new chakra nature, but more fundamental. The dragon force seems to recognize you as a natural conduit, the fox continued thoughtfully. Perhaps because of your Uzumaki lineage and our partnership. The barriers between dimensions were never meant to be absolute. A knock at the door interrupted their internal conversation. Naruto. Kimberly's voice came through. Everything fit okay. He opened the door to find her waiting, now dressed in more casual attire herself, jeans and a loose pink top that softened her athletic frame. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in his transformed appearance. Wow, you clean up nice, she commented, reaching out to straighten his collar with unconscious familiarity. You could actually pass for a regular Angel Grove High senior. Quote, is that a good thing? He asked, genuinely curious about her assessment. Her smile reached her eyes, crinkling the corners in a way that spoke of frequent laughter. Definitely, though we should probably do something about those weapon holsters strapped to your legs. Naruto glanced down, having forgotten he'd automatically reattached his kunai pouch to his thigh out of ingrained habit. Right, probably not standard fashion here. When they returned to the bedroom, Hinata and Ino had already changed. Hinata wore a lavender blouse that complemented her eyes and simple blue jeans, while Ino had selected a purple crop top and white shorts that somehow made her look perfectly at home in this dimension. Both had managed to conceal various weapons out their persons in ways that wouldn't be immediately apparent to civilian observers. You look, Naruto began, addressing Hinata, whose transformation seemed most striking to him. Without her familiar mission gear, something about her seemed simultaneously more vulnerable and more distinctly herself. Different, she supplied, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. Beautiful, he corrected honestly, causing her blush to deepen. He'd grown more direct with compliments in recent years, having finally recognized how his words affected others. Ino rolled her eyes good-naturedly at the exchange. If we're done appreciating each other's new looks, we should discuss our cover story. We can't exactly introduce ourselves as interdimensional shinobi with special powers. Exchange students, Kimberly suggested promptly. From Japan. That could explain any cultural confusion or language barriers. I can maintain a subtle telepathic field to assist with language, Ino offered. It's less intrusive than direct mind reading and would allow us to appear to speak and understand English naturally. Naruto nodded approval. Good. We maintain civilian cover unless absolutely necessary. Standard protocol for unknown territory. Quote, a beeping sound from Kimberly's nightstand interrupted them. She retrieved a small, watch-like device that Naruto recognized as her communicator. Go ahead, Zordon, she answered. Rangers. Zordon's voice emerged from the device. We've detected another dimensional anomaly forming near the youth center. It appears to be a passive scanning probe rather than an active incursion. We're heading there now, Kimberly confirmed. We'll investigate without drawing attention. Be cautious, Zordon advised. The energy signature matches neither Zed's forces nor the Otsutsuki entities. This may be a third faction entering play. After Kimberly acknowledged the warning and ended the communication, Naruto frowned thoughtfully. A third faction. The dimensional instability must be attracting attention across multiple realities. All the more reason to blend in and observe before acting, Hinata suggested, her tactical mind already analyzing potential scenarios. If this is a passive probe, engaging might reveal more about us than about them. Kimberly gathered her keys in a small backpack. The youth center is our regular hangout. The others will meet us there, and we can assess the situation while appearing to be normal teenagers. Ino gave a short, amused laugh. Normal teenagers. Right. Between interdimensional ninjas and Power Rangers, we're the definition of ordinary. Hey, when in Rome, Kimberly quipped, leading them toward the door. Naruto paused, confusion evident on his face. Rome. It's an expression, she explained, then paused. Wait, does your dimension have Rome? Another cultural exchange for the road, Ino commented dryly as they headed out, the first of many such moments awaiting them in this strange new world. Angel Grove Youth Center buzzed with typical weekend activity. Teenagers congregated around juice bars, exercise equipment, and study tables in the community hub that somehow managed to serve multiple functions simultaneously. For Hinata, whose Byakugan remained activated beneath a subtle genjutsu that hid her distinctive eyes, the space was a riot of unfamiliar energy patterns and behavioral dynamics. "There's so much casualness," she observed quietly to Trini, who had appointed herself cultural guide to the Hyuga heiress upon their arrival. "In our world, gathering places are typically more purpose-driven." Trini nodded understanding, her serene demeanor providing a comfortable anchor amid the chaos. Unlike Kimberly's effervescent energy, Trini moved through the world with a centered calm that Hinata found immediately relatable. "American teenagers socialize differently than in many cultures," Trini explained, leading Hinata toward a quieter table in the corner. Quote, "The youth center became our hangout because it accommodates so many different interests in one place." At the juice bar, Naruto sat with Kimberly and Tommy, attempting to comprehend the bewildering array of drink options while maintaining his cover as a foreign exchange student. Ino had positioned herself strategically near the entrance, ostensibly reading a magazine while actually monitoring all incoming and outgoing visitors for unusual energy signatures. "So these smoothies, they're fruit that's been destroyed," Naruto clarified, examining the laminated menu with suspicious fascination. Tommy chuckled, his easy leadership evident even in this casual setting. "Blended, not destroyed. Trust me, you'll like it. Try the strawberry banana." Kimberly leaned closer, her shoulder brushing against Naruto's in a way that seemed both casual and deliberate. "If you want something more familiar, they do have tea. Though probably not the kinds you're used to." Naruto's awareness of her proximity registered with unexpected intensity. Something about Kimberly's energy signature resonated with the dragon force power now integrated into his chakra system. Every time she moved near him, the spiral marking on his arm pulsed subtly, like a compass needle finding north. "I'll try the smoothie," he decided, embracing the when in Rome philosophy Kimberly had explained during their walk. Cultural immersion provided valuable insights into any society's functional dynamics. As Ernie, the perpetually jovial proprietor, prepared their orders, Billy and Jason joined them at the bar. The original Blue and Red Rangers had been conducting scientific measurements of the Plaza Rift site but had apparently finished their work. "Dimensional energy is definitely increasing across all monitored sites," Billy reported quietly. His technical language understated but his concern evident. "The rifts aren't closing naturally as similar phenomena should." "What about the scanning probe Zordon detected?" Tommy asked, maintaining a casual posture while his eyes constantly swept the room. "We've triangulated its focal point," Billy responded, discreetly indicating a spot near the youth center's western exit. "It appears to be passive data collection rather than targeting specific individuals." Naruto's enhanced senses, further amplified by his connection to the Morphin grid, detected a subtle distortion in the air near the location Billy had indicated. "I see it," he murmured. "It's similar to a chakra sensory technique, but more mechanical." Kimberly shifted closer, ostensibly reaching for a napkin while actually following his line of sight. "What do you think? Zed's forces are something else?" "Neither," Naruto decided after careful observation. "The energy signature doesn't match anything we've encountered. It's more orderly, precise." At that moment, Ernie arrived with their smoothies, his friendly demeanor a sharp contrast to the tension humming beneath the Rangers' casual conversation. "Here you go, folks. And for our international visitor, I added extra strawberries. Welcome to Angel Grove." Naruto managed a genuine smile, appreciating the man's sincere hospitality. "Thank you. Your city has been very educational so far." As Ernie moved away to assist other customers, Tommy leaned forward. "We should maintain normal appearances while monitoring the probe. If it's just gathering information, confronting it might escalate the situation unnecessarily." Naruto nodded agreement, having reached the same tactical conclusion. He took an experimental sip of his smoothie and blinked in surprise at the explosion of flavor. "This is actually really good," he admitted, regarding the pink concoction with newfound respect. Kimberly's delighted drew several glances from nearby tables. "Your face right now, priceless." First smoothie experience successfully documented. Something about her uncomplicated joy in sharing her world created a sensation in Naruto's chest that had nothing to do with the cold beverage. In his years as a shinobi, moments of simple pleasure had become increasingly rare, especially after the Fourth Great Ninja War. Kimberly's ability to find delight amid crisis reminded him of his younger self. Across the room, Hinata observed this interaction with complicated emotions playing across her features. Trini, demonstrating remarkable perception, gently redirected her attention. Your fighting style during yesterday's battle was incredible, she noted. The precision of your strikes, the way you channel energy through your palms, it reminds me of Tai Chi principles but with effects I've never seen before. Hinata's expression softened at the genuine interest. It's called the gentle fist. My clan has refined it over generations to target energy pathways within the body. In our training as rangers, we learn to feel the Morphin grid's energy flow, but not with such precision, Trini continued thoughtfully. I wonder if some of your techniques could be adapted to work with our power source. The conversation shifted into a detailed technical discussion of energy manipulation principles that transcended dimensional differences. For the first time since arriving, Hinata felt truly engaged rather than merely displaced, finding unexpected common ground with the Yellow Ranger. Meanwhile, Ino had been joined by Zack, whose extroverted personality and natural charm had immediately resonated with the Yamanaka heiress. They maintained their surveillance position while appearing to flip through music magazines together. So in your dimension, you can literally enter someone else's mind? Zack asked, keeping his voice low while maintaining an animated expression for any observers. Ino nodded, turning a page with deliberate casualness. My clan specializes in mind-based techniques. Telepathy, mind transfer, memory extraction, though the more invasive techniques require physical contact and significant chakra expenditure. That would be incredibly useful for ranger operations, Zack mused. We've encountered mind control and illusion-based attacks numerous times with no effective countermeasures. Perhaps we could develop some, Ino suggested, her analytical mind already considering potential applications of her techniques within this dimension's parameters. The Morphin grid seems to amplify certain aspects of our abilities while dampening others. Their conversation paused as Ino's attention suddenly sharpened. A new group had entered the youth center, 5 teenagers with fashion choices that seemed deliberately attention-seeking even by Angel Grove's eclectic standards. More significantly, they moved with the coordinated precision of a military unit despite their affected casual demeanor. 11 o'clock, she murmured to Zack. New arrivals with unusual movement patterns. Zack made a show of stretching while checking out the newcomers. Never seen them before, he confirmed. And I know pretty much everyone who hangs at the youth center. Across the room, Naruto had also noticed the new arrivals, his enhanced senses detecting something off about their energy signatures, not quite human. Though impressively disguised, a quick glance at Hinata confirmed she had reached the same conclusion, her Byakugan seeing through whatever concealment they employed. The leader of the group, a tall young man with unnaturally perfect features and metallic-tinted hair, scanned the room with predatory efficiency before leading his companions toward an empty table near the probe's location. As they settled, his gaze locked briefly with Naruto's, a flash of recognition passing between them despite never having met in either dimension. Kimberly leaned close to whisper, "Dimensional hunters." Possibly, Naruto agreed, maintaining a relaxed posture while subtly shifting to a position that would allow immediate response if needed. They're scanning for something specific. Or someone, Tommy added grimly. The afternoon proceeded in a delicate dance of surveillance and counter-surveillance, with both groups maintaining civilian appearances while studying each other. The Rangers and Shinobi coordinated through Ino's subtle telepathic network, exchanging observations without obvious communication. When the suspected hunters finally made their move, it came in an unexpected form. Rather than confrontation, their leader approached the juice bar alone, positioning himself near Naruto with casual precision. Interesting energy signature, he remarked, in a voice just low enough for Naruto's enhanced hearing. Not quite ranger, not quite alien. Something new. Naruto maintained his cover, taking another sip of his now empty smoothie before responding. I could say the same about you. You're a long way from home. The stranger's perfect smile never reached his eyes. As are you. Dimensional travelers fascinate my organization. Especially ones who transition with their powers intact. Quote, just tourists, Naruto replied lightly. Enjoying the local culture. Of course. The stranger signaled Ernie for a drink before continuing. Commander Vex, Special Temporal Assessment and Retrieval Squad. We monitor dimensional anomalies across the multiverse. The direct introduction surprised Naruto, who had expected continued pretense. He measured his response carefully, aware that Tommy and Kimberly were listening intently beside him. Naruto Uzumaki, and I assume you know exactly who and what I am, or you wouldn't have approached directly. Vex's smile tightened fractionally. The Dragon God Ranger. Theoretical until yesterday, when you sent energy readings across 12 dimensions by accepting Zordon's obsolete power coin. My organizer, Tion, has been monitoring potential Dragon Force manifestations for centuries. Tommy shifted subtly, his posture now more protective though his expression remained neutral. Your organization sound a lot like interdimensional bounty hunters to us. Such an ugly characterization, Vex responded, accepting his drink from Ernie with a charming smile that vanished the moment the proprietor moved away. We're scientists, catalogers, preservationists of unique energies. The multiverse is collapsing, Rangers. Dimensional barriers failing across all realities. We simply ensure that certain, valuable resources aren't lost in the process. Resources like people with unique powers. Kimberly challenged, her voice soft but steel-edged. Vex regarded her with clinical interest. The original Pink Ranger, your connection to the Morphin grid has always been particularly resilient. Another fascinating specimen. The temperature of the conversation dropped several degrees at his classification. Naruto felt the Dragon Force stir within him, responding to perceived threat against Kimberly with unexpected protectiveness. We're not specimens, he stated flatly. And we're not interested in being preserved or cataloged. Whatever dimensional crisis is occurring, we'll handle it our way. Noble sentiment, Vex replied, unperturbed. Unfortunately, the choice isn't entirely yours. The dimensional collapse has been accelerating for decades. Your arrival, his gaze flicked meaningfully to Hinata and Ino across the room, and the awakening of the Dragon Force have pushed us past critical threshold. My team is simply the first wave of interested parties who will come seeking you. The implicit threat hung in the air between them. Naruto maintained eye contact, allowing just enough of his power to surface that Vex would sense it without causing a scene in the crowded youth center. Then deliver a message to those interested parties, he suggested calmly. The Dragon Force isn't a resource to be harvested. It's a responsibility, one I take seriously. Vex's expression shifted minutely, reassessing. Interesting. Most dimensional catalysts don't survive long enough to develop philosophical positions about their role. He set down his untouched drink and stood. We'll be watching, Dragon God. When the barriers fail completely, and they will, you'll reconsider my organization's offer of extraction. As Vex rejoined his team, a subtle signal passing between them, Kimberly released a breath she'd been holding. Well, he's definitely not winning any personality contests. But he confirmed what Zordon suspected, Tommy noted grimly. This dimensional instability isn't isolated to our two worlds. It's multiverse-wide. Naruto nodded, watching as Vex and his team departed with the same unnatural coordination with which they'd arrived. And they've been expecting it. The question is, why now? What triggered the acceleration? Before either Ranger could respond, their communicators beeped simultaneously. Tommy raised his wrist discreetly. We read you, Zordon. Rangers, teleport to the command center immediately. Zordon's voice emerged, urgency EV'd. NT even through the device's limited audio. The dimensional hunters have activated the scanning probe into a full extraction portal. We have incoming hostiles at multiple locations. The youth center's lights flickered ominously, and a low rumble vibrated through the building's foundation. Civilians looked around in confusion, several commenting about another earthquake, apparently a common occurrence in Angel Grove that it didn't cause immediate panic. Looks like Commander Vex was just the distraction, Kimberly observed, already moving toward the exit where the other Rangers and Shinobi were converging. Or the advanced warning, Naruto countered, the Dragon Force mark on his arm now glowing visibly through his borrowed shirt. Either way, I think cultural integration just got postponed. The command center's main chamber pulsed with warning lights and urgent alarms as the combined group materialized on the teleportation platform. Alpha moved frantically between consoles. his mechanical limbs a blur of panicked efficiency. I.e. dimensional incursions at 7 locations simultaneously. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Zordon's expression was grave as he addressed the assembled group. Rangers, the dimensional hunters have deployed technology beyond my experience. They appear to be forcibly widening the natural rifts to allow controlled access from multiple dimensions. The viewing globe activated, displaying scenes from around Angel Grove, strange crystalline structures emerging from shimmering air distortions at the park, the quarry, the lake, the mountain range, the business district, the warehouse zone, and, most concerningly, Angel Grove High School. Those structures are dimensional anchors, Billy observed, dying the readings on the nearest console. They're stabilizing the rifts while simultaneously expanding them. Can we destroy them? Jason asked, already shifting into tactical planning mode. Negative, Zordon responded. Conventional attacks would likely accelerate the dimensional degradation. The anchors must be deactivated according to specific energy frequency patterns. Naruto stepped forward, the dragon force marking now glowing constantly against his skin. What about the dragon force? If it's connected to both dimensional energy systems, could it interface with these anchors? Orden's expression reflected cautious hope. Theoretically, yes, the dragon force exists partially outside conventional dimensional boundaries. However, attempting to channel it directly into the ores would require precise control beyond what even most rangers achieve in years of training. Good thing I've had 2 decades of chakra control training then, Naruto replied with quiet confidence. And I'm not doing it alone. He glanced at his companions from the shinobi world. Hinata's Byakugan can see the energy flow patterns. Ino can maintain psychic coordination between teams. The Rangers exchanged looks of surprise at his immediate tactical assessment and delegation of responsibilities. Tommy nodded approval, recognizing the natural leadership qualities that transcended dimensional differences. We'll need to split into teams, he decided, picking up Naruto's planning thread. 1 ranger and 1 shinobi per location when possible, to combine our different approaches. The IGH school anchor appears to be the control node, Billy noted, indicating readings on the monitor. It's transmitting synchronization signals to the others. Then that's our priority target, Naruto concluded. The glowing mark on his arm had begun spreading, tendrils of green-gold energy extending up toward his shoulder and down toward his fingertips. Kimberly and I will take the high school. Her ranged attacks can provide cover while I work on the anchor. If Tommy was surprised by Naruto's immediate partnering with Kimberly, he didn't show it. Jason and Hinata, take the park. Billy and Ino, the business district. Trini, Zack, and I will handle the remaining locations in sequence, starting with the quarry. What about us? A new voice interrupted their planning. The viewing globe shifted to show 3 Otsutsuki clan members standing outside the command center's security perimeter, their pale features impassive as they waited for acknowledgement. They followed our energy signatures, Hinata explained, her Byakugan active and focused on the unexpected visitors. But they're not attacking. They're requesting entry. Zordon studied the dimensional visitors with ancient wisdom born of countless conflicts. The Otsutsuki sought the dragon force in your dimension for consumption. What makes you believe their intentions have changed? Because dimensional collapse serves no one, Naruto answered, understanding the pragmatic reality of their situation. Even the Otsutsuki need stable dimensions to harvest. Right now, they need the collapse stopped as much as we do. After a moment's consideration, Zordon nodded. Alpha, allow them limited access to the outer chamber only. Minutes later, the Otsutsuki leader from the Valley of the End stood at a careful distance from the rangers and shinobi. His pale eyes fixed on Naruto with undisguised interest. The dragon force has truly awakened in you, he observed, his musical voice carrying complex harmonics. RD. Dimensional scouts report 17 separate factions have detected your energy signature. The hunters are merely the first to establish local presence. Why should we trust anything you say? Jason challenged. Positioned protectively near Hinata with instinctive ranger caution toward unknown entities. The Otsutsuki tilted his horned head slightly. Trust is irrelevant. Survival is mutual. My CL. And has studied dimensional boundaries for millennia. The anchors the hunters have deployed are modified from ancient Otsutsuki technology, corrupted and unstable. You're offering to help deactivate them. Naruto clarified, skepticism evident in his tone. We will take the mountain and lake anchors, the Otsutsuki confirmed with a slight incline of his head that might have been respect. Our methods differ from yours. But the objective aligns temporarily. Tommy exchanged glances with Naruto, a silent communication passing between two natural leaders assessing an uneasy alliance. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. But any betrayal ends the arrangement permanently. The Otsutsuki's lipless mouth curved in what might have been amusement. When dimensions collapse, permanently, becomes meaningless. We will uphold our part. As the temporary allies dispersed to their assigned locations, Kimberly and Naruto prepared to teleport to the high school. The Pink Ranger adjusted her power bow with practiced efficiency while watching Naruto's transformation with undisguised fascination. The Dragon Force energy now covered his entire right arm in swirling patterns of green and gold, responsive to his chakra flow in ways that reminded Kimberly of watching Aurora Borealis shifting across northern skies. Does it hurt? She asked quietly, indicating the luminescent markings. Naruto glanced down at his transformed limb with mild surprise, as if he'd forgotten its altered appearance. No, it feels right, somehow. Like it was always supposed to be there, just waiting to be activated. He flexed his fingers, watching the patterns shift in response. It's similar to entering Sage mode, but more integrated with my base chakra. Kimberly stepped closer, her ranger-enhanced senses detecting the unusual energy harmonics emanating from him. When you first transformed yesterday, it was different from anything I've seen in years as a ranger. Most of us have to actively morph, consciously connect to the Morphin grid. But it's more of a symbiotic relationship. Naruto finished her thought. The Dragon Force doesn't feel external like a power source I'm tapping. It feels like it's recognizing something that was already part of me. Their communicators beeped simultaneously, interrupting the moment of connection. Teams in position, Tommy's voice reported. Ready to beggy. End synchronous deactivation on your signal. Naruto met Kimberly's gaze, finding in her eyes a confidence that matched his own despite the gravity of their situation. Ready for this, Pink Ranger. Kimberly's smile held determination rather than humor. Lead the way, Dragon God. In a flash of pink and green gold light, they teleported toward their target. Angel Grove High School stood eerily empty in the late afternoon sunlight, weekend silence lending an uncanny quality to corridors normally bustling with teenage energy. The dimensional anchor had materialized in the central courtyard. A 12-foot crystalline structure that pulsed with sickly yellow light as it transmitted synchronization signals to its counterparts across the city. Kimberly and Naruto materialized at the courtyard's edge, immediately taking cover behind a concrete planter as they assessed the situation. Unlike the other locations, the school anchor had armed protection. 6 humanoid figures in chrome-plated armor patrolled the perimeter, carrying weapons that hummed with dimensional displacement energy. Chrono Guardians, Kimberly whispered, recognizing the distinctive armor from previous encounters with time-traveling entities. Elite enforcers. They can phase partially out of our timeline to avoid attacks. Naruto nodded, analyzing their movement patterns with experienced tactical precision. 6 guards, rotating coverage with overlapping fields of vision. No blind spots in their patrol route. So much for stealth, Kimberly concluded, reaching for her morpher. Standard approach. I'll draw their fire while you wait, Naruto interrupted, placing his hand gently on her arm. There's another way. He closed his eyes briefly, communing with the Dragon Force energy now flowing freely through his system. The dimensional properties here are different. If I adjust my chakra frequency. Without completing the thought, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he whispered, channeling chakra through the Dragon Force pathways rather than his traditional network. The result exceeded his expectations. Instead of physical duplicates materializing beside him, 6 translucent energy projections phased into existence directly alongside each guardian, perfectly matching their dimensional frequency. Before the guards could react to the sudden appearance, the energy clones engulfed them, creating cocoons of green-gold light that suspended the guardians in mid-motion. Temporal stasis fields, Naruto explained, seeing Kimberly's astonished expression. Apparently, a side effect of running shadow clones through the Dragon Force. Useful. That's one word for it, Kimberly agreed, clearly impressed. Remind me never to challenge you to a sparring match. They approached the anchor cautiously, its crystalline surfaces refracting light in hypnotic patterns that made direct observation difficult. Up close, Naruto could see geometric etchings along its face as T. Had reminded him of the dragon shrine that had started this interdimensional adventure. The symbols are similar to those in our shrine, he confirmed, circling the structure while keeping a respectful distance. But corrupted somehow. The energy flow is chaotic. Kimberly had morphed into her ranger form, her enhanced helmet sensors scanning the anchor's emissions. It's putting out massive interference across all communication frequencies. The others won't be able to coordinate with us until it's deactivated. Naruto nodded understanding. The isolation was likely deliberate. The control node had been placed at the high school specifically because its educational architecture would naturally dampen certain energy frequencies, making outside assistance more difficult. I need to interface directly with its core, he decided. The Dragon Force markings now covering both arms entirely. Can you maintain perimeter security while I work? Once I begin, I'll be vulnerable until the process completes. Kimberly activated her power bow, the pink energy weapon materializing in her hands with practiced ease. No one gets near you, she promised, her voice carrying a protective edge that transcended their brief acquaintance. Do what you need to do. Naruto approached the anchor, extending his Dragon Force-enhanced hands toward its pulsing surface. The moment his fingertips contacted the crystal, visions exploded through his consciousness, fragmented glimpses of multiple dimensions, time streams, possibilities colliding in chaotic profusion. He gasped at the sudden informational overload, his knees nearly buckling beneath the psychic assault. Within him, Kurama surged forward, the tailed beast's ancient consciousness helping to filter and organize the dimensional data flooding through their shared mindscape. Focus, Naruto, the fox urged. The anchor is scanning you, identifying your dimensional frequency. It's trying to classify the Dragon Force. Gritting his teeth against the disorientation, Naruto pushed back against the invasive scanning, asserting his will over the technological intrusion. The Dragon Force responded instinctively, green-gold energy flowing from his hands into the crystal structure, overriding its original programming with new parameters. Around them, the air shimmered with dimensional distortion as the anchor's function shifted. The CKLY yellow light gradually transformed to match Naruto's energy signature, indicating successful interface. It's working, Kimberly called from her defensive position, where she maintained vigilant watch despite the Guardian's continued stasis. The energy readings are stabilizing. Naruto couldn't respond verbally, his entire consciousness focused on maintaining control of the complex interdimensional technology. Through the connection, he could now sense the other anchors across Angel Grove, feel the Rangers and Shinobi engaging with them according to plan, the Otsutsuki applying therein. And knowledge to the mountain and lake locations. A sudden spike of alarm shot through the network. The business district anchor was rejecting Billy and Ino's deactivation attempt, its defenses adapting to their approach. Without conscious thought, Naruto extended his awareness through the control node, reaching for the troubled anchor. Through the dimensional network, he sensed Ino's telepath IC signature, familiar despite the distance, and established contact. Naruto. Her mental voice registered surprise. How are you? The control node gives me access to the entire network, he explained. His thoughts moving faster than words could convey. The anchor is recognizing Billy's Ranger signature as hostile. It's been programmed specifically against Ranger energy patterns. What about non-Ranger energy? Ino suggested, her analytical mind immediately grasping the implication. I could channel my techniques through Billy rather than working separately. Exactly. Naruto confirmed. Shinobi chakra routed through Ranger conduits might bypass the security protocols. He felt Ino relay the information to Billy, sensed their quick adaptation as the Blue Ranger ended his power lance as a conductive channel for Ino's mind techniques. Moments later, satisfaction rippled through the network as their combined approach succeeded. Naruto expanded his awareness further, connecting with each team through the anchor network. At the park, Hinata and Jason had already developed a similar synergy, her gentle fist techniques precisely disrupting energy nodes that Jason's raw power then overloaded. In the quarry, Tommy, Trini and Zack were rotating elemental approaches, systematically identifying the anchor's vulnerabilities. Most surprising was the Otsutsuki team's progress. Rather than deactivating their assigned anchors, they were repurposing them, converting the dimensional technology back to its original function as stabilization points rather than expansion vectors. Naruto. Kimberly's voice broke through his expanded awareness, urgency evident in her tone. Something's happening with the Guardians. The stasis fields are degrading. Reality snap. Ed back into immediate focus as Naruto registered the threat. The chrome-armored figures had begun to phase partially through his energy containment, their temporal displacement abilities gradually overcoming his improvised restraints. How much longer on the deactivation? Kimberly asked, her bow trained on the nearest Guardian as it struggled against its energy cocoon. Naruto assessed the anchor's conversion progress. 80% complete. 2 minutes minimum. They'll break free before then, she concluded grimly. I'll hold them off. Just finish the job. Before Naruto could protest, Kimberly launched into action. Her first arrow struck with pinpoint precision at a junction in the lead Guardian's armor, temporarily disrupting its phase technology. As it solidified fully into their timestream, she followed with a gymnastic tumbling pass that brought her within striking distance, her ranger-enhanced strength evident in the powerful kicks that sent the Guardian stumbling backward. The remaining Guardians increased their efforts to break free, the stasis fields weakening under their specialized temporal abilities. Naruto couldn't disengage from the anchor without losing a LL progress. The control node required constant interface until conversion completed. Kimberly, you can't take all 6 alone. He called out, frustration evident as he remained locked in position Y. She engaged the first fully freed Guardian. Her response carried unexpected confidence despite the disadvantageous odds. Watch me. What followed demonstrated why Kimberly Hart had survived years as a Power Ranger against impossible threats. She moved with fluid grace between opponents, using their superior numbers against them by maintaining constant motion that forced them to avoid hitting each other. Her arrows found vulnerable points with unerring accuracy, and when enemies closed to melee range, she employed gymnastics-based combat techniques that utilized momentum and leverage rather than just power. Even so, the numerical advantage began to tell as more Guardians broke free from the degrading stasis fields. A glancing blow caught Kimberly's shoulder, sending her tumbling across the courtyard where she recovered instantly but couldn't avoid a follow-up energy blast that struck her squarely in the chest. Kim, Naruto shouted, witnessing her demorph from ranger form as the blast overwhelmed her protection. Instinctively, he tried to disengage from the anchor, but the backlash of interrupted conversion sent pain searing through his nervous system. You cannot abandon the interface now. Kurama warned urgently. The dimensional feedback would be catastrophic. Kimberly staggered to her feet, determination evident despite her compromised state. Finish it, Naruto, she called, retrieving her fallen bow despite no longer having ranger enhancements. I'm fine. The Guardians converged on her position, recognizing the vulnerable target. Naruto watched in helpless fury as they surrounded Kimberly, their weapons charging for coordinated fire that even her exceptional skills couldn't hope to evade. In that moment of desperation, something fundamental shifted. Within Naruto's connection to the Dragon Force, the power that had been flowing through established pathways suddenly expanded, resonating with his emotional state as Kurama's chakra had once responded to his anger. No, the denial tore from his throat as golden light erupted from his body, maintaining the anchor interface while simultaneously projecting outward in a wave that engulfed the entire courtyard. Time itself seemed to hesitate, caught between moments as the Dragon Force manifested its most fundamental aspect, control over dimensional boundaries, including the boundary between sequential moments. The Guardians froze in mid-motion, not through technological restraint but through temporal suspension. In this moment of borrowed time, Naruto felt the anchor conversion complete. He disengaged from the crystal structure, which now pulsed with stable green light, and crossed the courtyard in what seemed like a single step to reach Kimberly. She alone remained unaffected by the temporal distortion, her eyes widening as she witnessed his approach through frozen Guardians. What did you? Dragon Force application of the principles behind the Flying Thunder God technique, he explained quickly. Though the explanation meant nothing in this dimension. Temporary temporal displacement. Very temporary. We need to move. As if summoned by his urgency, the teleportation system activated automatically, surrounding them in pink and green light as the command center recalled them from the completed mission. The last thing Naruto saw before dematerializing was the Guardians beginning to move again, their weapons discharging into empty air where Kimberly had stood moments before. Dimensional anchors neutralized at all 7 locations, Alpha reported as Team's Remater. Iolized in the command center at staggered intervals. Rift expansion has been halted and reversal has begun at 5 sites. Zordon's expression reflected measured relief as he addressed the assembled rangers and shinobi. You've succeeded in containing the immediate threat, but the dimensional hunters will undoubtedly attempt new approaches. Naruto stood slightly apart from the others, the draw-gone force manifestation having receded somewhat though still visible as faint luminescent patterns beneath his skin. The energy expenditure at the high school had been significant, but already he could feel his reserves rebuilding at an accelerated rate, another apparent effect of his connection to the Morphin grid. Kimberly had rejoined him after a quick medical assessment by Alpha, her ranger Aling already addressing the injuries sustained during the battle. That was some rescue, she commented quietly. Temporal manipulation wasn't in the standard ranger power set last time I checked. It's not in the standard shinobi toolkit either, Naruto admitted. I think the Dragon Force is evolving in response to needs, adapting faster than I can consciously direct it. Their conversatio. N paused as the Otsutsuki representatives materialized in the command center's outer chamber, maintaining the agreed boundary. Their leader stepped forward to the communication interface. The diamonds, ional anchors at the mountain and lake have been reconfigured to stabilize rather than expand the natural rifts, he reported without preamble. They will now help maintain separation between realms until a more permanent solution can be implemented. Tommy approached the interface, maintaining cautious diplomatic protocol. Your assistance is appreciated. What are your intentions now? The Otsutsuki's pale eyes shifted to Naruto. We will establish temporary settlement in this dimension to monitor the situation. The Dragon Force awakening changes long-established assumptions. New calculations are required. You mean new plans for harvesting it, Jason translated bluntly. The alien being made a gesture that might have been concession. Our objectives remain consistent, but methodologies must adapt to circumstances. Dimensional collapse serves no one's interests. Coexistence is pragmatic until stability returns. After the Otsutsuki departed with coordinates for a designated monitoring position far from population centers, Billy summarized the scientific outcomes of their mission. The dimensional tiers have stopped expanding, but they haven't fully closed. It's more like we've applied pressure to wounds that still require healing. And the Dragon Force energy signature continues to broadcast across dimensions, Trini added, consulting a monitoring station. More factions will likely investigate, as the hunters and Otsutsuki suggested. Zordon's projection focused on Naruto, who had moved to examine the dimensional mapping system that displayed current rift locations across Angel Grove and beyond. Naruto Uzumaki, your control of the Dragon Force exceeded expectations for initial manifestation. However, the power appears to be developing along pathways influenced by your existing abilities and emotional responses. Naruto understood the implied concern. You're worried about unintended consequences. That I might accidentally trigger dimensional effects I can't control. The Dragon Force was theoretical until your arrival, Zordon confirmed. Its capabilities and limitations remain largely unknown. Training and understanding will be essential. I've had some experience with unpredictable powers, Naruto replied with a glance toward Hinata and Ino, who would understand the reference to his early struggles with Kurama's chakra. Structure and purpose help provide control. What exactly is the Dragon Force meant to do? The question seemed to resonate with Zordon, who activated a historical display sequence in the viewing globe. Ancient images formed. A dragon-like entity coiled around what appeared to be multiple dimensional spheres, maintaining their separation while simultaneously connecting them through controlled energy channels. The earliest records suggest the Dragon Force originally served as the boundary keeper between dimensions, Zordon explained. Not merely separating realities, but allowing controlled, managed connections where beneficial. When dimensions fully separated, this regulatory function was lost, leading to the current instability. Ino approached the display, her intelligence-gathering instincts evident. Quote, "So the Dragon God Ranger isn't just a warrior role, but a dimensional regulator. Restoring a function that's been absent for, how long? Billions of years, by your dimensional timescale," Zordon answered. The prophecies surrounding the Dragon Force's return were considered metaphorical by most scholars. Few believed a physical manifestation would actually occur. Naruto absorbed this in forma, Chion with growing understanding of why his chakra had resonated so strongly with the dragon power. His entire shinobi career had centered around connecting people, bridging differences, finding balance between opposing forces. The Dragon Force represented that principle on a cosmic scale. "So what's our next move?" Tommy asked, bringing the discussion back to immediate tactics. "The hunters will regroup. The Otsutsuki are temporary allies at best. And Lord Zed hasn't even shown his hand yet. We continue monitoring dimensional activity while developing protocols for stable transitions between our worlds," Billy suggested. "If Naruto is meant to regulate boundaries rather than seal them completely, we need a better understanding of how controlled passages should function." Kimberly had been watching Naruto throughout this exchange, recognizing the weight of responsibility settling on shoulders already accustomed to carrying the fate of his own world. She moved to stand beside him at the dimensional display. "One step at a time," she suggested quietly. "Today we stop the immediate threat. Tomorrow we figure out the next part." Her practical approach cut through the overwhelming scale of cosmic responsibility, grounding the situation in manageable increments. Naruto felt unexpected gratitude for her perspective, so similar to his own typical approach when facing seemingly impossible challenges. "Rangers, you should return to your daily activities to maintain normal appearances," Zordon advised. "The dimensional hunters will be monitoring civilian patterns for irregularities. Alpha will alert you to any new developments." As the group prepared to depart, Hinata approached Naruto with concern evident in her pale eyes. "Your chakra pathways have been significantly altered by today's events," she observed, her Byakugan briefly activating to scan his energy system. "The Dragon Force is integrating more deeply than before." "I feel it," he acknowledged. "It's not painful, just different. Like learning a new chakra nature but at a more fundamental level." Hinata hesitated, then added softly, "The connection seems strongest when you're near Kimberly. Your energies resonate in an unusual pattern." Quote, before Naruto could process this observation, Ino joined them with her own assessment. "The telepathic network we established during the mission revealed something interesting. The Rangers' connections to the Morphin grid vary significantly in structure and depth. Kimberly's is most similar to how chakra flows in our dimension, which might explain the resonance Hinata noticed." These insights added new dimensions to consider, but were interrupted as teleportation sequences began. Tommy had organized transportation back to civilian locations, with the Shinobi returning to Kimberly's house to maintain their cover as exchange students. As they rematerialized in Kimberly's living room, the abrupt transition from cosmic crisis to suburban normalcy created cognitive dissonance that left them momentarily silent, processing the day's events and revelations. So, Kimberly finally broke the silence, her natural resilience asserting itself as she moved toward the kitchen. "Who's hungry? Saving multiple dimensions works up an appetite." Naruto couldn't help but laugh at the deliberate mundanity of the question after everything they'd experienced. "Interdimensional ramen exists, right? Please tell me this dimension has ramen." "We can order takeout," Kimberly confirmed with a smile. "Consider it part of your cultural education. Though I'm pretty sure our dimension's version won't live up to your standards." As they settled into surprisingly normal conversations about food preferences across dimensions, Naruto felt the Dragon Force energy cycling smoothly through his system, no longer flaring with the volatility of new connection. The power was adapting to him as much as he was adapting to it, finding balance in the same way he'd eventually harmonized with Kurama. Outside Kimberly's home, the sun set on a day that had fundamentally changed two worlds. Citizens of Angel Grove continued their evening routines, unaware that their reality had nearly collapsed into another, or that visitors from a different dimension now walked among them. In the gathering darkness, dimensional rifts across the city pulsed with subdued energy. Neither expanding nor fully healing, waiting for the Dragon God Ranger to determine their ultimate fate. Balancing between worlds had never been a simple task, but Naruto Uzumaki had been preparing for this responsibility his entire life. Even if he hadn't known it, the true challenges of world bridging still awaited. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Dragon Ascension. Dawn broke over Angel Grove with deceptive tranquility. Golden light spilling across suburban landscapes that appeared unchanged to their sleeping inhabitants. In the command center, however, activity had continued uninterrupted through the night. Billy Cranston's fingers moved across holographic interfaces with practiced precision, his fatigue evident only in the slight shadows beneath his eyes as he completed the 43rd sim. Elation of the proposed integration ritual. The energy transfer curves are still showing potential cascade points, he reported, pushing his glasses up with one finger. If Naruto's chakra network ejects the dragon force during full integration, we could trigger dimensional feedback across all 7 stabilized rifts. Alpha scurried between monitoring stations, mechanical arms adjusting calibrations with nervous energy. The simulations keep showing a 93% probability of success, but that 7% failure scenario is catastrophic. Zordon's eternally patient expression focused on the central platform where Naruto sat cross-legged in deep meditation, luminescent dragon force patterns pulsing beneath his skin in rhythm with his controlled breathing. Around him, a circle of crystalline pillars harvested from the neutralized dimensional anchors formed the ritual framework that would either fully integrate the dragon force with his chakra network, or potentially tear apart both dimensional frameworks. The theoretical becomes practical only through implementation, Alpha, Zordon observed. Every Ranger power transfer has carried risk. This one simply operates on a larger scale. Hinata knelt beside Naruto's meditation position, her Byakugan active as she monitored the interaction between his chakra system and the emerging dragon force pathways. For the past 6 hours, she had maintained this vigil, providing real-time feedback for Billy's simulations with a precision that had impressed even the scientifically minded Blue Ranger. The Integra Chion points are stabilizing in his core chakra network, she reported, her soft voice carrying clinical detachment despite her evident concern. The dragon force seems to be adapting to follow his established tenketsu patterns rather than creating entirely new channels. Ino stood at a specialized console Alpha had configured for her telepathic abilities, her hands forming a modified mind transfer seal that allowed her consciousness to interface with the command center's systems without fully leaving her body. The innovation had come during the night, when the need for faster than verbal communication became evident during early integration attempts. The resistance is coming from Kurama, she noted, her voice carrying the slightly distant quality it assumed during partial consciousness projection. The Nine Tails is protective of their shared chakra network. He's not opposing integration, but vetting it, for lack of a better term. Testing the dragon force against his own standards. Tommy Oliver and Kimberly Hart entered the chamber from the east corridor where they had briefly rested, both Rangers looking remarkably composed despite the tension permeating the command center. Their years of crisis response had taught them the value of measured rest cycles during extended operations. "How's it looking?" Tommy asked, accepting a data tablet from Billy with practiced familiarity. "We're approaching the threshold for the formal integration ritual," Billy answered, indicating energy readouts that meant little to non-technical observers but clearly concerned him. The Doctor, Agon Force has established preliminary connections throughout Naruto's chakra network, but full integration requires a catalyst, essentially a controlled power surge that permanently binds the energies. Kimberly moved to the platform's edge, her gaze drawn to Naruto's meditative form. The dragon force patterns had spread further since she'd left for rest, now covering most of his visible skin in intricate, shifting symbols that seemed to contain meaning beyond mere decorative patterns. Despite having seen countless Ranger-related phenomena, something about this transformation struck her as particularly significant, ancient in a way that transcended even Zordon's prehistoric knowledge. The patterns are writing, she realized suddenly, recognizing similarities to symbols she'd seen in the command center's historical archives. They're forming some kind of script. Billy immediately adjusted his scanners, focusing on the patterns with renewed interest. "You're right, they appear to be a form of dimensional language, similar to what we found on Phytos during the Great Power Quest, but more fluid." "They're responding to his thoughts," Hinata confirmed, her Byakugan perceiving aspects invisible to normal vision. Each pattern shifts slightly as different emotions or memories surface during his meditation. Zordon's expression revealed rare amazement. The dragon force is not merely connecting to his physical energy system, it's synchronizing with his consciousness, his very identity. This degree of integration has never been documented with any ranger power before. Is that dangerous? Tommy asked, leader's instinct immediately assessing potential risks. Not dangerous, Zordon clarified. Unprecedented. The dragon force was theorized to choose its wielder based on compatibility with its fundamental nature. It appears to be mapping Naruto Uzumaki's essence to confirm that compatibility before full awakening. As if responding to this observation, the luminescent patterns suddenly intensified. Pulsing with increased urgency, Naruto's breathing pattern changed, becoming deeper and more deliberate as his closed eyelids flickered with rapid movement. Something's happening, Hinata reported, tension evident in her normally composed voice. His chakra and the dragon force are accelerating their interaction cycle. The integration is proceeding automatically. Ino's hands tightened in her mental connection seal. Kurama has accepted something. A recognition or agreement has been reached. The crystalline pillars surrounding the platform began to resonate in harmony with the energy patterns flowing across Naruto's skin, emitting soft tones that gradually combined into a haunting melody unlike anything present in either dimension naturally. The Ko-Mon center's lights dimmed as power redirected to support the intensifying ritual. Power transfer initiating, Alpha announced, his sensors tracking the surging energy readings. Morphin grid connections establishing at quantum level. Billy moved quickly between monitoring stations, his scientific focus momentarily overtaking concern. The dragon force is establishing multi-dimensional anchor points throughout his chakra network. It's creating stable interfaces between our dimension's energy parameters and his native dimensional constants. In the center of the platform, Naruto's eyes opened abruptly, revealing not their natural blue, nor the gold cross pattern of his sage mode, but brilliant emerald irises intersected by spiraling golden patterns that rotated slowly around pupils. It seemed to contain galaxies in miniature. His expression remained serene despite the clearly overwhelming sensory experience. Naruto, Kimberly called out, instinctively stepping toward him before Tommy's gentle restraining hand on her shoulder stopped her. The veil between worlds grows thin, Naruto spoke, his voice overlaid with harmonics that seemed to echo from multiple sources simultaneously. The boundaries seek their keeper. The dragon returns to balance what was sundered. He's channeling the collective consciousness of the dragon force, Zordon explained, even his ancient wisdom sounding humbled. The power speaks through him during integration. Hinata maintained her observational position despite evident concern, her Byakugan tracking energy fluctuations with unwavering discipline. The chakra pathways are approaching maximum capacity. If the integration completes too rapidly, his system could overload. We need to stabilize the transfer rate, Billy concluded, nerves flying across interfaces to adjust ritual parameters. The crystalline array can modulate the energy flow if properly calibrated. Before adjustments could be implemented, Naruto rose smoothly to his feet. The dragon force patterns now covering his entire body in constantly shifting luminescence. He extended his arms outward, palms upturned as if offering or receiving something invisible. The pattern fragments seek reunification, he continued in that same multi-layered voice. Pieces scattered across dimensions call to each other across the void. Dragon force awakens to prevent collapse and ensure controlled communion. The crystalline pillars' resonance intensified, their structure beginning to vibrate visibly as energy flowed between them and Naruto in visible arcs of green-gold lightning. The platform beneath him began to glow with the same energy, ancient symbols illuminating in concentric circles around his position. Ritual accelerating beyond predicted parameters, Billy warned. Urgency overcoming his typically measured scientific tone. The dragon force is driving the integration process faster than our simulations accounted for. Zordon's voice carried rare command authority. Hinata, you must stabilize his chakra network through your gentle fist techniques. The Byakugan allows you to see and influence the energy pathways directly. Without hesitation, Hinata moved onto the platform, her hands already glowing with the precise chakra control that characterized her clan's techniques. She navigated through the arcing energy with graceful determination, reaching Naruto's side despite the intensifying power field. Naruto-kun, She spoke clearly, centering herself despite the chaotic energies surrounding them. I need to regulate your chakra flow. Please allow my influence. Recognition flickered in those otherworldly eyes, Naruto's essential consciousness acknowledging her despite the Dragon Force's dominant presence. He nodded once, an almost imperceptible movement that nonetheless conveyed consent. With surgical precision born of lifetime training, Hinata's fingers struck specific points along Naruto's chakra network, not to seal or damage, but to regulate and harmonize. Each touch left briefly glowing imprints that integrated with the Dragon Force patterns, creating stable nodes where energies could exchange without overwhelming the surrounding system. It's working, Ino reported from her telepathic interface. The integration rate is stabilizing. Kurama is assisting from within, using Hinata's regulation points as guidance to manage internal flow. The command center's power fluctuations gradually normalized as the ritual found equilibrium. The crystalline pillars continued their resonant humming, but at sustainable NCIES rather than the building crescendo of moments before. Billy's monitoring systems showed energy curves flattening into predictable patterns. Chakra grid synchronization at 70% and stabilizing. He confirmed with evident relief. Integration proceeding within safe parameters. Throughout this intervention, Kimberly had remained intensely focused on Naruto, something about his transformation resonating with her in ways she couldn't articulate even to herself. As a ranger, she had witnessed countless power manifestations, but the Dragon Force expressed something fundamentally different. Not merely power as weapon or tool, but power as connective principle between realities. He's bridging worlds, she murmured, the observation seemingly coming from somewhere beyond conscious thought. Not just between dimensions, but between types of energy, types of existence. Tommy glanced at her with surprise. What do you mean? Before she could attempt to explain the half-formed insight, the command center's communication system activated with urgent priority signals. The viewing globe illuminated with images of Angel Grove Park, where citizens fled in panic from what read to be ordinary wildlife behaving with coordinated aggression. i.e., multiple reports of animal attacks throughout the northern park sector. Alpha announced, dividing his attention between the ongoing ritual and the emerging crisis. The animals appear to be responding to some form of dimensional disruption near the stabilized rift site. Tommy's leadership training immediately engaged. Kimberly and I will investigate. Billy, continue monitoring the integration ritual with Hinata and Ino. Alert us if anything changes. Zordon nodded approval. Be cautious, Rangers. The dimensional barriers remain fragile. Even minor disruptions could trigger cascading failures across all stabilized sites. As Tommy and Kimberly prepared to teleport, the command center's entry sensors activated, indicating authorized arrival. The transport tube illuminated with yellow energy as a figure materialized. Aisha Campbell, the Yellow Ranger who had been visiting family in Stone Canyon during the initial dimensional crisis. Guys, we've got serious problems, she announced immediately, her usual warmth overshadowed by urgent concern. The wildlife preserve outside Stone Canyon is going crazy, Nemals are acting like they're possessed or responding to some signal humans can't hear. She paused, taking in the scene before her with widening eyes. And, I see I'm late to whatever this is. Dimensional visitors, Tommy explained concisely, indicating Hinata and Ino with a gesture that encompassed both the ritual platform and their extraordinary nature. Dragon Force activation ritual, IML disturbances potentially connected to dimensional instability. Basically, Tuesday for us. Despite the gravity of the situation, Aisha's face briefly lit with her characteristic smile. Just another day saving multiple realities, huh? Her expression sobered quickly as she focused on the platform where Naruto stood at the center of ancient energies, Hinata still maintaining regulatory influence over his chakra network. That power feels primal, like it's calling to the animals somehow. This observation immediately captured Billy's attention. The animal disturbances began simultaneously with the ritual's peak intensity. He noted, checking correlation timestamps. There could be a direct causative relationship. The Dragon Force connects all dimensional expressions of energy, Zordon confirmed. In your Yellow Ranger form, Aisha, you've developed particular affinity with animal spirits through the Morphin grid. This connection likely allows you to perceive aspects of the Dragon Force that affect natural life. Tommy made a quick tactical adjustment. Aisha, you should join Kimberly at the park site. Your animal affinity might provide insights into what's happening. I'll check the Stone Canyon Preserve with Adam and Rocky. As the Rangers prepared to deploy, the ritual entered its final phase. The crystalline pillars began rotating slowly around the platform. Our earlier chaotic energy emissions now flowing in precisely choreographed patterns between them and Naruto's transformed form. Hinata continued her regulatory techniques, though with decreasing frequency as his chakra network adapted to the integration. Synchronization at 85%, Billy reported. Approaching completion threshold, Naruto's voice emerged again, now more balanced between his natural tones and the Dragon Force harmonics. The connection clarifies. Purpose aligns. The Keeper awakens to duty. The command center shuddered slightly as dimensional energy surged through its systems. The Morphin grid responding to the Dragon Force's full activation. For a brief moment, everyone present experienced a disorienting sensation of existing in multiple places simultaneously. Glimpsing fragments of other realities, other possibilities. Then reality snapped back into focus as a brilliant column of emerald and gold light erupted from the platform, engulfing Naruto completely. When it subsided seconds later, he stood transformed. The Dragon God Ranger armor materialized completely for the first time, deep emerald and burnished gold plates flowing seamlessly together like scales. Incorporating elements reminiscent of both traditional Ranger suits and stylized shinobi battle gear. Unlike standard Ranger helmets, his featured an open face design that left his eyes visible. Now returned to human appearance though still carrying subtle luminescence that reflected his transformed nature. Integration complete, Billy announced, checking final readings. Chakra Gri. Desynchronization stable at 92% efficiency. Hinata stepped back, her Byakugan deactivating as she surveyed the results of their combined efforts. His chakra network has fully adapted. The Dragon Force flows through his established pathways without disruption. Naruto looked down at his transformed state with measured wonder, flexing gauntleted hands that hummed with harmonized power. When he spoke, his voice carried only his natural tones, though with new resonance that suggested expanded awareness. I can feel both energy systems working together, he observed. Chakra and grid power flowing through the same channels but maintaining distinct properties. And something else. He closed his eyes briefly, focusing inward, a sense of dimensional boundaries, like new senses I didn't have before. Zordon's expression conveyed both satisfaction and solemnity. The Dragon God Ranger powers have awakened as prophesied. You now carry the capability to perceive an INFL. Yuan's dimensional boundaries directly, a responsibility unparalleled in either of our worlds. The viewing globe pulsed with renewed urgency, displaying escalating chaos at both Angel Grove Park and the Stone Canyon Preserve. Animals moved with unnatural coordination, forming patterns that seemed random to casual observation but revealed disturbing geometric precision when viewed from overhead perspectives. We need you in the field, Tommy stated directly, assessing Naruto's condition with a leader's practiced eye. Are you combat ready, or do you need recovery time after the integration? Naruto rolled his shoulders, performing a quick self-assessment. I'm operational. The Dragon Force actually feels energizing rather than depleting. Like it's designed for continuous activity rather than limited deployments. Another difference from standard Ranger powers, Billy noted with scientific interest. Traditional morphing draws from the Morphin grid externally. Your integration suggests the Dragon Force establishes permanent residence within your energy system. Which means no transformation limitations or energy depletion risks during extended operations, Tommy concluded. I am immediately recognizing the tactical advantages. Kimberly and Aisha are heading to Angel Grove Park. I suggest you join them while we cover Stone Canyon. Naruto nodded, then glanced toward Hinata with clear appreciation. You stabilized the integration when it could have overwhelmed my system. Thank you. Your chakra network is uniquely adaptable, she replied with characteristic modesty. I am. Airly provided guidance the system was already seeking. Ino disengaged from her telepathic interface, shaking her head slightly to reorient after extended mental projection. The command center's stems are now keyed to recognize all our chakra signatures, she reported. I can establish direct telepathic communication with deployed teams through the existing Ranger network. Tommy acknowledged this development with approval. That solves our cross-dimensional communication challenges. Eno will coordinate from here while teams deploy to both locations. He glanced at the viewing globe. Animal disturbances continued escalating. We need to move quickly before civilians are injured. As the Rangers prepared for teleportation, Naruto approached Kimberly with unexpected hesitation. His newly integrated powers responding to her proximity in ways he couldn't fully interpret. You sensed something during the ritual, he noted. Something about bridging worlds. Kimberly met his gaze directly. Her natural confidence tempered by the weight of emerging understanding. Just an impression. The Dragon Force doesn't feel like other Ranger powers. It's not just about fighting or protection. It's about connection, reconciliation between separated things. Her insight resonated with his own emerging awareness of the power's fundamental nature. Before he could respond, however, the teleportation sequence initiated, dissolving their conversation into streams of colored light. Angel Grove Park had transformed from peaceful recreation area to chaotic battleground in less than 30 minutes. Squirrels moved in coordinated swarms that overwhelmed park visitors. Deer charged with uncharacteristic aggression at evacuation routes. Even typically solitary predators like coyotes and hawks demonstrated unnaturally synchronized hunting patterns, forcing civilians toward the center of the park rather than allowing their escape. Kimberly and Aisha materialized near the northern playground, already morphed into their ranger forms. They immediately established a defensive perimeter around a group of trapped families, their years of crisis response evident in their efficient coordination. Something's controlling them, Aisha observed, her yellow ranger powers providing enhanced perception of animal behavior patterns. Not just driving them crazy, actually coordinating their movements with purpose. Kimberly's power bow materialized in her hands as she tracked approaching wildlife with measured concern. They're herding civilians toward the dimensional rift site. But why? What happens when they get there? Quote, the air shimmered with green-gold light as Naruto teleported to their position, his dragon god armor immediately drawing attention from both civilians and animals. The wildlife responded with visible agitation, their coordination momentarily disrupted by his arrival. The animals can sense the dragon force, he noted, observing their reactions with analytical precision. They're responding to dimensional energy leakage from the stabilized rift, but my presence is interfering with whatever control signal they're following. Aisha approached a trembling deer that had broken formation from its aggressive herd, her gloved hand extended cautiously. The animal allowed her touch, its unnatural aggression subsiding as her yellow ranger energy interacted with whatever influence had been controlling it. There's some kind of energy parasite attached to their natural life force, she reported, her connection with animal spirits providing insights others couldn't access. It's using them as physical anchors in our dimension while remaining partially phase-shifted in another reality. Naruto extended his perceptions through the dragon force, experiencing for the first time its capacity to sense dimensional anomalies directly. The sensation was disorienting, like suddenly gaining a new sense beyond the standard 5, but he adapted quickly, the energy parasites Aisha had described. They're extensions of something larger, he concluded, processing the unfamiliar sensory input. Tendrils from a central entity positioned at the rift site, reaching through to manipulate this dimension's wildlife. Kimberly maintained her defensive position while processing these insights. So we need to target the source entity rather than just protecting civilians from controlled animals. Yes, but carefully, Naruto cautioned, his dimensional awareness revealing complications invisible to standard perception. The entity exists simultaneously in at least 3-dimensional planes. Attacking blindly could cause it to fully manifest in our reality, or worse, pull portions of our dimension into its native realm. Civilians watched this exchange with expressions ranging from confusion to awe, the familiar comfort of ranger protection now complemented by this new, distinctive armored figure who radiated authority beyond even what they were accustomed to from their colorful protectors. A small child broke away from his sheltering mother, approaching Naruto with innocent curiosity despite the chaos surrounding them. Are you a new Power Ranger? He asked, eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. The question momentarily shifted Naruto's focus from tactical assessment to human connection, a transition that had always come naturally to him even in crisis situations. He knelt to the child's level, his partially exposed face allowing a reassuring smile visible even through the armored facial frame. "Something like that," he answered simply. "We're going to help the animals feel better and get everyone home safely." This small interaction, witnessed by the gathered civilians, visibly reduced their collective anxiety. Seeing Rangers respond compassionately to a child during crisis reconnected them to the human aspects of their protectors, not merely their combat capabilities. Kimberly observed this exchange with unexpected warmth spreading through her chest. Despite his extraordinary power and interdimensional origin, Naruto's fundamental nature remained unchanged, connected to people, responsive to their needs rather than merely focused on the abstract threat. "We need to move these civilians away from the rift while approaching the central entity," she stated, returning to tactical necessities. "Standard evacuation protocol with Ranger escort." Aisha nodded, her hands still gently resting on the deer's flank as she continued neutralizing the parasitic influence. "I can clear a path by temporarily disrupting the control signal with my Ranger energy. It won't last long, but should create an evacuation corridor. I'll identify and engage the central entity," Naruto decided, rising from his interaction with the child. "My dimensional perception can locate its actual position rather than just its manifestations." The three protectors moved with practiced efficiency despite never having operated as a specific team before. Aisha channeled her Yellow Ranger energy in expanding waves that temporarily disrupted the parasitic control over wildlife within her radius, creating a clear evacuation route. Kimberly coordinated civilian movement with calm authority, her gymnastics-based mobility allowing her to quickly address emerging threats along the escape corridor. Meanwhile, Naruto approached the dimensional rift site, his newly integrated senses providing unprecedented awareness of the boundary conditions between realities. The Dragon Force responded intuitively to his intent, enhancing specific perceptual aspects as needed. Where normal vision saw only empty air with occasional energy distortion, he perceived layered realities overlapping like transparent sheets, each containing different manifestations of the same location. At the rift's center, he finally perceived the entity responsible for the wildlife manipulation, a massive, amorphous creature resembling an octopus composed of shifting electromagnetic fields rather than physical matter. Its central mass existed primarily in another dimensional plane, while countless tendrils extended through the weakened barriers to affect Angel Grove's reality. "Interesting," Kurama commented within their shared mindscape. "This entity appears to be a natural interdimensional predator rather than a sentient invader. It's hunting using animals as sensory extensions." Like a fisherman using lures, Naruto agreed, analyzing tactical approaches that wouldn't further damage dimensional boundaries. "It's probably been feeding on energy leakage from the rift, growing strong enough to extend its influence." Having established the evacuation corridor, Kimberly and Aisha joined him at the rift site, though their perception of the threat remained limited to its effects rather than direct observation of its multidimensional nature. "We've cleared civilians to the safe perimeter," Kimberly reported. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Naruto gestured toward what appeared to them as empty space. "An interdimensional predator using the rift as feeding ground. Its actual body exists mainly outside our reality, but its project tendrils through to control wildlife and herd potential prey toward itself." Aisha's connection to animal spirits provided partial perception of the creature. "I can sense its pressure on the natural world, like a weight pressing down on normal reality. How do we fight something that barely exists in our dimension?" "We don't fight it directly," Naruto decided, the Dragon Force providing tactical insights alongside its perceptual advantages. "We re-establish proper dimensional boundaries that naturally exclude its influence." He extended his hands toward the rift, Dragon Force energy flow from his armored gauntlets in precisely modulated streams. Rather than attacking the creature, he began reconstructing the dimensional boundary itself, reinforcing reality's natural resistance to interdimensional bleeding. The entity responded immediately, sensing the threat to its feeding ground. Its amorphous form contracted, withdrawing numerous tendrils from controlled wildlife across the park while concentrating its mass near the rift. Throughout the area, animals abruptly stopped their aggressive behaviors, many collapsing from exhaustion after extended control. "It's responding to the boundary reconstruction," Naruto reported, maintaining his energy projection despite increasing resistance. But it's fighting the separation, trying to establish permanent presence in our dimension before the barrier closes. The air around them shimmered with increasing distortion as the creature pushed against Naruto's efforts, manifesting more substantially in their reality with each passing second. What began as barely perceptible electromagnetic disturbance gradually gained visual definition, a monstrous form materializing at the rift site like a developing photograph. Its forcing manifestation, Kimberly recognized. Her power bow materializing in preparation. If it fully crosses over, then we handle it like any other monster, Aisha finished, her practical nature asserting itself despite the extraordinary circumstances. Naruto adjusted his approach, recognizing the tactical shift required. I can't prevent its manifestation and reconstruct the boundary simultaneously. We need to contain it physically once it crosses over, then repair the dimensional barrier afterward. The Rangers moved into flanking positions around the manifestation point, their experienced calm. Bat coordination evident despite the unusual circumstances. As the creature solidified into physical reality, its true form became visible to normal perception, a 20-foot monstrosity resembling a cross between cephalopod and insect. With a central mass of pulsating organs surrounded by dozens of barbed tentacles. That, Kimberly observed dryly, is definitely not covered in the Angel Grove Wildlife Guide. The fully manifested entity emitted a high-pitched keening that caused nearby electronics to malfunction and sent ripples of discomfort through organic nervous systems. Its tentacles lashed out with surprising speed, forcing the three defenders into immediate evasive maneuvers. Kimberly's gymnastics-based fighting style served her perfectly against the multi-limbed threat. She bled through the air with ballistic precision, each movement flowing seamlessly into attacks that kept multiple tentacles occupied without allowing them to coordinate against her. Her power bow Dishar, Jeed precisely aimed energy arrows that temporarily severed the creature's limbs, though they regenerated with disturbing rapidity. Aisha engaged from the opposite flank, her Yellow Ranger abilities particularly effective against the creature's attempt to re-establish wildlife control. Each time tentacles attempted to emit the parasitic energy fields, her counterpulses disrupted the frequency, protecting the gradually recovering animals throughout the park. For Naruto, the confrontation provided the first true combat test of his integrated dragon god powers. The armor responded to his movements with seamless precision, enhancing rather than restricting his shinobi fighting style. When tentacles struck his position, he substituted with nature elements using his traditional techniques, but now enhanced through dragon force channeling. Dragon style. Elemental substitution. He called out, the technique's name coming instinctively as chakra and grid energy harmonized. Where standard substitution would have swapped his position with a nearby object, this enhanced version left behind elemental avatars that continued fighting autonomously for several seconds before dissipating. The Cr. Ichir recognized Naruto as its primary threat, focusing increasingly desperate attacks on his position while attempting to reopen dimensional passages with its remaining energy. Tentacles no longer imply attacked physically but began emitting dimensional distortion fields that threatened to phase portions of reality around him into other planes of existence. It's trying to split the battlefield across multiple dimensions. He warned his teammates, recognizing the strategy from the creature's energy patterns. Stay within visible range of each other. Kimberly immediately adjusted her position to maintain sightlines with both teammates, her tactical adaptability matching his assessment without questioning its validity. We need a combined attack approach. Individual efforts aren't containing it. Agreed. Aisha called back, narrowly evading a tentacle strike that left a small dimensional rift where it impacted the ground. But how do we coordinate against something existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously? The question crystallized an approach in Naruto's tactical awareness. The Dragon Force had been showing him dimensional boundaries throughout the confrontation. Now he needed to use that perception offensively rather than defensively. I can create a dimensional focus point, he decided, channeling Dragon Force energy through his palms into a swirling disk of green-gold power. A single convergence plane where all aspects of the entity intersect. When I establish it, target that exact point with everything you have. Understanding immediately, the two range RS repositioned for optimal attack angles while continuing defensive maneuvers against the increasingly frantic tentacle assaults. The creature seemed to sense their strategy, its attacks becoming more desperate as Naruto's dimensional focusing technique took form between his hands. Dragon Force. Dimensional Convergence Point. He announced, completing the technique with a precise application of harmonized chakra and grid energy. The swirling disc expanded rapidly, enveloping the creature's central mass in emerald light that forced all its multidimensional aspects into a single plane of reality. Now, Naruto called out as the entity emitted a keening wail of distress, momentarily immobilized by its forced dimensional consolidation. Pink Power Bow. Full charge. Kimberly declared, her signature weapon materializing at maximum power configuration. Yellow Ranger. Earth Strike. Aisha called simultaneously, channeling her ranger energy through the ground itself to create localized seismic disruption. Naruto completed the synchronized attack with a technique that came to him through the Dragon Force's guidance. Dragon God Art. Reality Sealant. The energy disc contracted violently inward, compressing the creature's now unified form while simultaneously reinforcing the dimensional boundary around it. The three energy signatures, pink, yellow, and green gold, converged on the dimensional predator from different vectors, intersecting within its central mass with catastrophic precision. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves across Angel Grove Park, though strangely constrained within a perfect sphere that prevented collateral damage to surrounding trees and structures. As the energy dissipated, it revealed not destruction but transformation. The creature had been pressed into a crystalline sphere approximately 1 foot in diameter, its chaotic interdimensional nature now contained within a stable matrix that pulsed with subdued energy. What happened to it? Aisha asked, approaching cautiously while maintaining defensive readiness. Naruto lifted the sphere, examining it with both physical and dimensional senses. The combined attack didn't destroy it, it stabilized its dimensional frequency and compressed its form. It's essentially hibernating now, locked into a single stable state rather than existing across multiple realities. Kimberly joined them, her ranger helmet retracting to reveal an impressed expression. So instead of destroying it, we basically contained it, rehabilitated it. The Dragon Force is primarily regulatory rather than destructive, Naruto confirmed, understanding of his power's nature continuing to evolve through practical application. It seeks balance between dimensions, not elimination of entities that cross them. That's a different approach than we're used to with ranger powers, Aisha noted, her helmet also retracting as the immediate threat subsided. Usually monsters either grow to city-destroying size or explode dramatically. This way seems more sustainable for long-term dimensional management, Kimberly observed thoughtfully. If everything that crosses boundaries isn't automatically destroyed, it creates possibilities for actual coexistence rather than endless conflict. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by Tommy's communication signal. Angel Grove Team, report status. Stone Canyon situation is stabilizing as animals return to normal behavior patterns. Threat contained, Kimberly responded, professional efficiency returning. Entity neutralized and dimensional boundary restored at park location. The Dragon God Ranger's abilities provide previously unavailable containment options. Understood, Tommy acknowledged. We're completing civilian safety protocols here. Return to command center for debrief when secured. As they prepared for teleportation, Naruto surveyed the park where wildlife had returned to normal behaviors, no longer controlled by external influence. The dimensional boundary at the rift site had stabilized, though he could still perceive its presence through his enhanced senses, a thin seam in reality that would require ongoing monitoring. What happens to that? Aisha asked, indicating the crystallized entity he still held. Zordon will probably want to study it, Kimberly suggested. It's the first interdimensional entity we've contained rather than defeated. Naruto nodded agreement while contemplating broader implications. If dimensional boundaries continued weakening across both their worlds, encounters with such entities would increase. The Dragon Force's regulatory approach offered sustainable management rather than endless combat, a philosophy that resonated with his long-held beliefs about breaking cycles of conflict. As teleportation energy enveloped them, he found himself considering Kimberly's earlier observation about the power's fundamental nature. The Dragon Force didn't just bridge worlds physically, it offered philosophical middle paths between opposing approaches to interdimensional challenges. The crystalline sphere pulsed gently in his hand, transformed from threat to object of study through balance rather than destruction. Perhaps that represented the true potential of his new role, not merely fighting incursions, but establishing sustainable harmony between separated realities. The command center hummed with renewed purpose as Rangers and Shinobi gathered for comprehensive debriefing. The central platform had been reconfigured from ritual space to analytical laboratory, with the crystallized dimensional entity secured within specialized containment fields while Billy conducted preliminary examinations. Fascinating, the Blue Ranger commented, adjusting scanning parameters. Its dimensional frequency has been completely stabilized. Instead of existing across multiple planes simultaneously, it now maintains consistent presence within a single harmonic range. Like tuning a radio to a specific station instead of picking up fragments from multiple broadcasts, Trini suggested, her gift for accessible metaphors complementing Billy's technical approach. Tommy facilita Ted the formal debrief with practiced efficiency, each team reporting their experiences at different locations. The Stone Canyon team had faced similar wildlife manipulation but encountered no central entity, suggesting the Angel Grove rift had been the primary incursion point with secondary effects radiating outward. The containment technique you developed represents a significant tactical evolution, he noted, addressing Naruto with professional appreciation. Previous interdimensional incursions have typically ended in destruction or forced retreat of the entities involved. The Dragon Force seems designed for regulation rather than elimination, Naruto explained, now demorphed though faint energy patterns remained visible beneath his skin. It treats dimensional crossing as a condition to be managed rather than a violation to be punished. Zordon's expression reflected thoughtful consideration of this philosophical distinction. The ancient records suggest the Dragon Force Gina Ted before dimensional separation became rigidly enforced. Its approach may represent the original intended relationship between realities, controlled interaction rather than absolute isolation. Ino, who had coordinated telepathic communication throughout the operation, offered additional insights from her unique perspective. During the containment, I sensed the entity's consciousness shift from predatory to dormant. It wasn't destroyed. Its nature was temporarily balanced to prevent harm while preserving its existence. A more sustainable approach for ongoing dimensional management, Adam observed. The Black Rangers typically measured contributions reflecting his philosophical nature. If boundaries continue weakening, we can't simply destroy everything that crosses over. I ally considering we're technically dimensional travelers ourselves, Hinata added quietly, indicating herself, Naruto, and Ino. The distinction between invader and visitor becomes meaningful when cross-dimensional travel increases. These observations sparked thoughtful discussion about evolving approaches to interdimensional encounters, a conversation that naturally integrated Ranger perspectives with Shinobi tactical considerations. Despite their different backgrounds, the defenders found common ground in pragmatic problem-solving and ethical considerations that transcended dimensional differences. Throughout this exchange, Kimberly noticed Naruto's attention periodically shifting to the viewing globe, where monitored rift sites displayed varying levels of stability. His expression revealed growing awareness of responsibilities beyond immediate crisis management, the longer-term implications of his unique position as dimensional regulator. When discussion reached natural conclusion, teams dispersed to various command center sections for specialized tasks. Billy and Trini continued analyzing the contained entity. Adam and Rocky updated dimensional mapping systems with new data. Tommy and Jason reviewed civilian protection protocols for future incidents. Kimberly found herself approaching Naruto at the primary monitoring station, where he studied rift patterns with focused intensity. Something about his demeanor, committed yet slightly uncertain about his expanding role, resonated with her own early experiences adapting to Ranger responsibilities. Overwhelming, isn't it? She observed, joining him at the console. When I first became a Ranger, I kept waiting for someone to realize they'd made a terrible mistake choosing a gymnast to help save the world. His smile carried genuine warmth despite evident preoccupation. Did that feeling ever completely go away? Not entirely, she admitted with refreshing candor. But it evolved into something more useful, a LTHY awareness of the responsibility without the paralyzing self-doubt. Naruto nodded understanding, his attention returning to the dimensional displays. In my world, I've faced world-ending threats, ancient gods. Even the progenitor of all chakra. But this, he gestured toward the monitored rifts, this isn't just about fighting enemies. It's about maintaining cosmic architecture across multiple realities. No pressure, Kimberly quipped, her light tone carrying genuine empathy beneath the humor. The weird thing is, Naruto continued thoughtfully, it doesn't feel entirely unfamiliar. My entire shinobi career has involved bridging differences, finding balance between opposing forces. The Dragon Force just expands that principle to literal dimensions. Kimberly studied him with perceptive consideration. Maybe that's why it chose you specifically. Not just because of your chakra compatibility or combat abilities, but because your natural inclination already aligned with its fundamental purpose. The insight struck deeper than expected, resonating with Naruto's emerging understanding of his new role. Before he could respond, however, Alpha's anxious movements interrupted their conversation. Energy fluctuations detected at the high school rift site. The robot announced, mechanical arms gesturing expressively. But the pattern doesn't match previous incursions. The viewing globe shifted focus to Angel Grove High School, where the stabilized rift emitted unusual energy signatures unlike previous disturbances. Rather than chaotic dimensional bleeding, these patterns displayed organized, almost deliberate configuration. That's not random dimensional activity, Billy observed, joining them at the monitoring station. Those are communication RNS. Someone or something is trying to establish contact through the rift. From which side? Tommy asked, immediately assessing potential threats. Billy adjusted scanning parameters, his expression shifting to surprise. Based on dimensional frequency, from the shinobi world. Something there is attempting controlled communication rather than physical crossing. Hinata and Ino exchanged NGFUL glances before approaching the monitoring systems. Hinata activated her Byakugan, studying the energy patterns with her unique perceptual abilities. That's a modified version of the Yamanaka clan's telepathic transmission technique. She identified with certainty. Someone from Konoha is attempting contact. Ino stepped forward, recognition dawning. It's Shikamaru's energy signature comb. End with my father's specialized transmission protocols. They're using techniques I helped develop before. Her voice faltered briefly, before we disappeared. Can you establish connection? Zordon asked, recognizing the potential significance of controlled communication between dimensions. Ino nodded with professional confidence despite evident emotional response to this contact from home. With the command center's systems boosting the signal, yes. The technique is specifically designed for my reception, they're targeting me directly. Within minutes, specialized interfaces had been configured to amplify and stabilize the interdimensional signal. Ino sat at the central position, her hands forming familiar signs as she extended her consciousness toward the tenuous connection bridging worlds. Contact established, she announced, her voice carrying the distant quality it assumed during partial consciousness projection. Receiving transmission from Konoha Intelligence Division. The viewing globe shifted to display a flickering, somewhat unstable image, Shikamaru Nara's familiar features materializing like a television broadcast with poor reception. His typically bored expression had been replaced by focused intensity that highlighted the seriousness of the situation. Repeat, priority transmission for Yamanaka Ino, Uzumaki Naruto, and Hyuga Hinata. Dimensional disturbances increasing across elemental nations. Requesting status and coordination protocols for static interrupted the transmission briefly before clarity returned. Systematic rift formations API. Ring at sites of significant chakra events throughout history. Otsutsuki activity detected at multiple locations. Naruto stepped into transmission range, the dragon force patterns beneath his skin brightening in response to the interdimensional connection. Shikamaru, we receive you. We're alive and operational in an alternate dimension with local allies. Repeat, we are secure and working with indigenous defenders. Shikamaru's image stabilized as Ino refined the connection, his relief briefly visible before professional demeanor reasserted itself. Naruto, our sensors detected massive GY discharge from your location approximately 6 hours ago. Has the Dragon Shrine power activated? Affirmative. Integration complete with local power grid system. I've assumed a regulatory role regarding dimensional boundaries. Naruto confirmed, automatically adopting formal mission reporting protocols despite speaking to a longtime friend. That aligns with Kakashi's research findings, Shikamaru responded, using the former Hokage's name rather than his title, indicating he spoke from intelligence capacity rather than official village administration. Ancient records suggest the Dragon's Rhine connects to a multidimensional regulatory system designed to maintain controlled passages rather than absolute separation. This confirmation from the shinobi world reinforced Zordon's historical understanding, providing cross-dimensional verification of the Dragon Force's fundamental nature. Tommy stepped forward, recognizing the strategic importance of establishing formal alliance parameters. This is Tommy Oliver, White Ranger and Field Commander of Earth's Power Rangers, he introduced himself with appropriate formality. We're providing full support to your dimensional represent at Ives while addressing boundary instabilities affecting both our worlds. Shikamaru assessed the unfamiliar figure with characteristic analytical efficiency. Understood. Konoha extends formal alliance recognition to your defensive organization. We're establishing monitoring posts at all active rift sites within our jurisdiction. The transmission clarity suddenly deteriorated, interference patterns disrupting the tenuous connection. Ino's expression tightened with concentration as she fought to maintain the link. Something's disrupting the signal, she reported, fingers adjusting position to compensate. External interference rather than natural degradation. Shikamaru's image fragmented further, but his voice remained audible through increasing static, detecting unauthorized access. Attempts. Otsutsuki communication protocols bypassing standard security, dimensional coordinates being transmitted to unknown. Someone's using our communication channel to track dimensional coordinates, Billy interpreted. Fingers flying across controls to implement countermeasures. They're hijacking the signal to map transit vectors between worlds. Naruto immediately recognized the strategic implications. Shikamaru. Terminate transmission. The connection is being used to establish invasion pathways. The shinobi strategist needed no further explanation, his image nodding once before deliberately collapsing the connection from his end. The viewing globe returned to standard monitoring display, though interference patterns continued disrupting multiple systems throughout the command center. Trace the interference signature, Tommy directed, leadership instincts fully engaged by the potential threat. Billy's analysis appeared on auxiliary screens, revealing disturbing conclusions. The signal piggyback originated from within the dimensional void itself, not from either our world or the shinobi dimension. Something existing between realities intercepted and manipulated the transmission. Lord Zarin. Zordon identified with grave certainty. His fragmented consciousness exists partially within the dimensional void. He would recognize the Dragon Force activation and seek to track its wielder across realities. This assessment carried ominous implications beyond immediate tactical concerns. If Lord Zarin could intercept communications between dimensions, traditional security protocols would prove insufficient for coordinating defensive efforts across realities. We need secure cross-dimensional communication methods, Tommy concluded, addressing both immediate and long-term strategic requirements. Something that doesn't create exploitable transit vectors. Ino, having fully returned from her partial consciousness projection, offered thoughtful consideration. My clan's techniques directly connect minds without creating external signal patterns. If properly modified for cross-dimensional application, they might provide secure alternatives to technological transmission. The Dragon Force could potentially facilitate such connections, Naruto suggested, emerging insights about his new capabilities informing the proposal. If it naturally exists across dimensional boundaries, it might create secure pathways for specific authorized exchanges. These theoretical possibilities required development beyond immediate implementation, but represented promising approaches to a critical vulnerability exposed by their first formal contact between worlds. The Rangers and Shinobi quickly established working groups to explore different aspects of cross-dimensional security, applying complementary expertise to shared challenges. As teams dispersed to their assignments, Kimberly found herself working alongside Naruto on preliminary Dragon Force communication protocols. The collaborative process revealed surprising compatibility in their problem-solving approaches, her intuitive creativity complementing his experience-based pragmatism in ways that generated innovative solutions neither might have developed independently. It's almost like we've worked together before, she observed during a brief pause in their technical discussions. Our approaches just mesh. Naruto nodded agreement, having noticed the same natural synchronization. The dragon force responds differently when we're collaborating. More harmonized, somehow. Before the why could explore this observation further, Aisha approached their workstation with urgency that suggested new developments. You need to see this, she stated without preamble, directing their attention to environmental monitoring displays. The screens showed distinctive energy patterns emerging at all stabilized rift sites simultaneously, subtle dimensional signatures that hadn't triggered emergent psi alerts but nonetheless indicated coordinated activity across multiple locations. The rifts are communicating with each other, Aisha explained, her affinity for natural systems providing unique insights others might have missed. Not exchanging data like our transmission with Konoha, but harmonizing their fundamental frequencies. They're synchronizing. Naruto extended his dragon force perception toward the nearest rift, immediately confirming her assessment. It's like they're establishing a network, recognizing each other across geographical distance while maintaining distinct locations. Is that dangerous? Kimberly asked, recognizing potential strategic significance beyond immediate threat assessment. Not inherently, he responded after careful consideration. It actually resembles less natural systems establishing equilibrium, like separate ecosystems developing connections that allow sustainable interaction rather than isolation or invasion. This observation aligned with RGING understanding of the Dragon Force's regulatory philosophy, balanced connection rather than rigid separation or unrestricted merger. The rifts appeared to be evolving toward stable interdimensional membranes rather than unpredictable tiers in reality. The Dragon Ascension ritual may have initiated this harmonization process, Zordon suggested, his ancient wisdom providing context for these unprecedented developments. By fully activating the Dragon Force within our dimension, you've provided a central reference point around which dimensional boundaries can reorient themselves. The implications extended beyond tactical considerations into fundamental reconceptualization of dimensional relationships. Rather than treating rifts as dangerous abnormalities requiring elimination, they GHT represent the natural restoration of controlled connections between worlds that had been artificially separated for billions of years. We should continue monitoring the synchronization process, Billy recommended. Scientific caution tempering philosophical implications. While natural harmonization appears beneficial, it could create vulnerabilities if manipulated by entities like Lord Zarin. This balanced approach, neither rejecting dimensional connections nor embracing them without appropriate safeguards, reflected growing integration of Ranger and Shinobi perspectives. Both groups had faced world-threatening dangers that demanded vigilance, yet both ultimately sought peace and balance rather than perpetual conflict. As monitoring systems were reconfigured to track the synchronization process, Naruto found himself contemplating the Dragon Force's broader implications for both worlds. The power wasn't simply a weapon or tool for crisis management, it represented fundamental philosophical questions about how different realities should interact. You're thinking big thoughts, Kimberly observed, recognizing his contemplative expression from their brief but increasingly familiar association. Just wondering what all this is leading toward, he admitted. As the Dragon Force trying to restore something that existed before dimensions separated, or creating something entirely new. She considered this with characteristic thoughtfulness beneath her outward confidence. Maybe both. The past informing the future without determining it completely. The philosophical exchange was interrupted as Tommy called the team together for strategic planning regarding their next steps. As defenders from both dimensions gathered around the central platform, Naruto recognized Someth. Insignificant had changed since their first awkward meeting days earlier. Rangers and Shinobi no longer maintained subtle separation, instead naturally intermixing based on complementary abilities and compatible perspectives rather than dimensional origin. Hinata and Trini discussed energy perception techniques that transcended their different traditions. Billy and Ino compared notes on cation security protocols that integrated technological and mental approaches. Adam and Rocky conversed with animated interest about Naruto's shadow clone technique and its tactical applications. The natural collaborations represented microcosms of what dimensional harmony might ultimately achieve, distinct traditions maintaining their integrity while benefiting from expanded perspective through controlled interaction. The Dragon Force hadn't just integrated with Naruto's personal energy system, it had begun facilitating broader integration between separated worlds. As Tommy outlined immediately, 8 security protocols and research priorities, Naruto's awareness extended briefly through his Dragon Force connection, perceiving the network of stabilized rifts gradually establishing harmonic balance across both dimensions. The sensation wasn't merely tactical information but carried emotional resonance, the satisfaction of separated systems finding appropriate relationship. "This feels right," Kurama commented from within their shared consciousness. "Not merging worlds destructively, but establishing channels through which they can relate constructively." Balance without uniformity, Naruto agreed silently. Connection without consumption. The Dragon Ascension ritual had awakened more than personal power. It had initiated a process with implications extending far beyond individual capability or immediate crisis. As the unified team finalized their strategic approach to cross-dimensional security, Naruto recognized his role encompassed not merely combat effectiveness but fundamental philosophical leadership regarding how worlds should interact. The Dragon God Ranger represented not just unprecedented power, but unprecedented perspective, a bridge between traditions, between approaches, between dimensions that had forgotten their original connectivity. That responsibility extended beyond tactical applications into the realm of vision, imagining how separated realities might establish sustainable harmony rather than destructive collision. As night fell over Angel Grove, dimensional synchronization continued its measured progression, rifts stabilizing into regulated connection points rather than chaotic tiers. The process remained in early stages, vulnerable to disruption and manipulation by forces like Lord Zarin, but its fundamental direction suggested possibilities beyond crisis management toward genuine interdimensional cooperation. The Dragon had ascended not to dominate, but to connect, a distinction with profound implications for both worlds moving forward. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.